Oh, it's that time. We are starting the weekend here in style on Sportswire Radio. We are now live on sportnarium.com/player. Our flagship also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. And we are starting Father's Day weekend here in style with two of my guys. That is a rather combed hair looked the brute force Brad Weiss. So if he's combed his hair, he's definitely got a lot to say on his mind. The legendary SJC New York Golden Eagle, also, of course, with our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team as the head coach. Level Up, Long Island Nets, many, many other things he also does, including, of course, our LI Brew Crew. And of course, you hear him here every day on Sportswire Radio, sometimes multiple times. He is the co-host of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, who recently celebrated both their 50th shows. That is Chris Pazay, and also happy Father's Day, Chris. Hopefully
Thank
you
you.
have a great time. Hopefully you don't have to cook. Hopefully your wife
Oh,
does something nice for you. Hopefully maybe you go to a show, whatever it might be. We'll get into some of that. But guys, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Tom.
Oh, definitely. I'm glad to be with everyone here. We're waiting on Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. We'll be joined in here with Randy Dillon in about, I'd say, 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe we'll wrap a bow on the NHL season for the Rangers. Get a thought or two on the Stanley Cup. I know if you're in the New York area watching, or if you're on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Desmond Johnson Station, I don't really think you care about the NHL anymore because your Carolina Hurricanes got eliminated. But before I get into some of that, I did want to get to the Brute Force because it has obviously been a big talk for myself and the Brute Force and a number of different people that support us specifically locally on Sportswire Radio over the past 24 hours. And that is definitely the news that I think actually I've probably gotten more messages for that than anything else in quite a while. And that is the news that our SJC New York Golden Eagles are now going to be looking for a new head coach from the men's basketball team. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss, it was somebody that I know that was a good friend of ours. And Mike McSloy was the coach, and certainly, actually, I was Mike McSloy's first interview back in 2019. And Coach McSloy has always been very gracious with us here in his support of the station, the team, and I've gotten to know him for about 3 years. And he was your coach here last year, so I'll get to Randy and Chris in a second. We'll get to the NHL playoffs and much, much more. But I did, the Brute Force, want to talk about the news that Mike McSloy is no longer the head coach for our beloved Golden Eagles, and he is now over at Drew University. And wanted to get your reactions because you're the first guy really publicly that's going to opine on it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to congratulate Coach Mike McSloy on getting this position with Drew University. It just shows what he's done in his career. Obviously, starting as a player, he's a great player over at Oswego Maritime, then took the trip on multiple assistance jobs with multiple universities.
NYU, Gettysburg.
Yep. And then ultimately landed here on Long Island with our St. Joe's Golden Eagles. And was, I think, going to be a guy that's going to be remembered as the guy who turned the program back in the right direction. Obviously, as we all know, I lived the doom days of St. Joe's when we had as many wins in 3 years as McSloy had in his past season. And he just did an amazing job. I mean, he came in from day one. Obviously, myself, I was the first guy he spoke to when he came to St. Joe's. And it meant a lot to learn from him. Whether I was on the court or off the court, he was a great guy to learn from. He's a terrific coach, a terrific leader. He knows a lot about the game, but he's also a great mentor just as a person. He's a great person. And that's why his players are so devastated and disappointed with him no longer being the coach. But with that being said, like I said, he got a great opportunity. He laid the foundation for this program to go into the right direction. The players have a great bond and culture. We have probably the largest roster we've had in many years, and that goes for what McSloy did as a recruiter, which he had great experience with as he was an assistant. He came to St. Joe's, became a great recruiter, and from going from 8 guys, when I was on the team in 2018, we had 8
I remember.
And now we have almost 18 guys who are interested and that potentially might be on the team next season. So it's an amazing feat from Coach McSloy. We are going to miss him dearly at St. Joseph's. The program's definitely going to keep getting better, though. I think they're going to make a great hire, but it's going to really, really hurt not having Coach McSloy in that locker room. But we will be rooting him on over at Drew University. But I will say before I close my thoughts here, I want to talk about Coach McSloy and myself on the court because we did play a few nights ago before I found out the news.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
I want to make sure I do talk about that.
Okay. I'm glad
because myself and Coach McSloy dominated the courts over at Northsport a few nights ago. We got a big-time 30-point win. I walked into the gym a little bit late, Tom, and it was 19-19. And then we went on a big run. I believe we were up like 40-some to 23, 47-23 at halftime. I came in that game and got a few blocks. I took a charge. So we had a ton of fun, and McSloy made some great shots. And, listen, it's going to be one of those things. Yes, it's tough for him not to be the coach, but he's always going to be a Golden Eagle. He's always going to be remembered, like I said, as that coach that turned the program around, that made St. Joe's who they are supposed to be, which is a winner, like when Coach Matejko was there. And I think McSloy, like I said, laid the foundation. The players are going to be going in the right direction. They've gotten so much better, and I'm really excited to see the future of not only St. Joseph's, but obviously we'll keep our eyes on Drew as well. That's a great program.
That's a big conference. The Landmark Conference, that's some big-time programs that play in there.
Big-time program that's been in multiple, Landmark championships over the last few years. And they just got a gem of a coach and Coach McSloy to lead them going forward. So props to them, but our Golden Eagles will be just fine. But it is a very, very sad week and a difficult loss for our Golden Eagle family.
Oh, no question about it. And also we have a comment here from Justin Gianelli. He'll be on here in a few minutes. So thank you, Justin. Definitely we will be here, and we're actually doing our soliloquy anyway on Coach McSloy. And I do think at the end of the day here, and we won't spend too long on it because obviously I want to get to some other sports, and people are tuned in here tonight also for different things. And I want to thank Anthony Finkel, of course, as always, who's tuned in. Also Aunt Laura, who just shared our video. William Van Helmen, of course, very, very dear friend of mine also from Suffolk County and just moved to Florida. So maybe Coach McSloy missed him on the way out. Who knows? But obviously, when I think about Coach McSloy and I think about the program, and I'll never forget when I spoke to him on the phone, and this had to have been right before Christmas break 2019, where you guys had just beat William Patterson. And it was like, I was like, Coach, I got your phone number from so-and-so, and could we do an interview? And he was like, well, how does this work? And I explained it to him on the phone, and he took a chance on me, and we had an interview. We spoke about you quite a bit, and obviously a number of players, and that's where it developed a relationship with us here at St. Joe's. And obviously the basketball team has been one of our biggest supporters, and Coach definitely believed in me, and obviously we've spoke back and forth quite a bit over the past few years, and definitely he did a great job with the program, definitely made a lot of people proud. Obviously the win against Yeshiva is one of the biggest wins in the entire program's history. Probably our biggest win since the 2012 team that Coach Matejko had, going all the way to the NCAA tournament. And he definitely put the program back on the map. And regardless, whoever takes the job here at St. Joe's, I think we're going to be in great hands. Coach Cortieso, I spoke with, and he's very, very excited about the future of the team, and he will be back next season. So we'll also be speaking with Coach Cortieso here in a few weeks. Hopefully we have a new coach by then so we can get his thoughts on it. Also, some new players are coming in here. We're going to hear about that next week, a number of different players. So very, very excited about that. Also, Coach Heenan, congratulations to him on all the success. But I got a good feeling that we're going to be all right. We're going to hang in there. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you the brute force, though, if you're going to be taking the job or not. I'm not going to speculate into names. People have already messaged me about name. Listen, somebody even said, should I apply for the job? I'm like, I don't know if they want a promoter. In wrestling, I could maybe take a job, but maybe not in basketball. So I won't say who actually asked if I would apply for the job, but I don't think the SID there at St. Joe's would take a sports talk show host from Staten Island, so with a loud mouth. So I don't think that's going to happen. But all kidding aside, congratulations to the entire team. They will definitely be in good hands. I have a good feeling about that. Coach McSloy, congratulations to you. I know that it was a very highly contested race to get this job, and we'll definitely speak about it more here in the future. But I continue to think you'll be able to follow the team anytime on SJC MBB. Anthony Finkel's already chimed in and says, Coach Rev. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I already got an offer to do like a month tour in professional wrestling around January 1st in England, so that I might have to do that. So I think that would kind of prohibit me from being a college basketball coach between October 15th and March 15th. So I've promised, like,
put that in the contract.
Yeah, right.
I need to be away for a week or two.
Well, unfortunately, it's going to be a month or two. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline. I have any interest in the job at St. Joe's, but I am sure that whoever will get the job will do a great job. And Anthony Finkel also says, yes, yes, yes. Friday night sports night with the boys, best night of the week. And before I get to the NHL in a second, the other sports, Anthony Finkel, I have a slight bone to pick with you because Anthony Finkel messages me Wednesday afternoon. I just get up. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm slotting in all these different shows for Sportswire Radio, and I think I was live that a little while afterwards. And he says, you want to come out to Brooklyn to go to Lucia Pizza, which is a place I've obviously promoted, and we have a connection with that through Steve Saperstein, obviously. Somebody there who works in the pizza joint is a friend of ours. And I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to meet with you. And he said, well, how about 2:30? I just got up. I mean, bro, you got to give me a little more time than that. And I said, well, how about 5 o'clock, 5:15? So I'm thinking, all right, I can get myself situated. I can do what I got to do. And I figured we'd meet up and have some pizza. And Anthony Finkel never got back to me. So I'm still waiting. So Lucia Pizza. So Big Fink. I mean, what's the deal there? But if you are around, certainly this weekend, the next few days, let us know. I am live here, so I'm definitely waiting on that. And I will also get to the NBA Finals because I did watch that, and I want to get to that. But I want to put a bow on the New York Rangers season here in a second because I have Randy Dillon here for a little while. And Randy, good to be with you, my friend. And thanks for taking us away from a little bit of the St. Joe's, New York talk a little bit in the weeds there. But I wanted to put a bow on the Rangers season. Obviously, it didn't work out the way that Rangers fans would have hoped. Still a great season for them. Certainly, though, there was some questionable decisions, I think, in terms of who sat and who played. But Randy, give me a vantage point on how it unfolded for the Rangers and where does this team go from here? Because they do have some decisions on some players they need to decide to bring back.
If you would have told me at the beginning of the NHL season, the Rangers would have taken the defending Stanley Cup champions all the way to a Game 6 in the conference final, I would have laughed at you and said, you better bet your house.
I think all of us on here would have laughed. Chris would have definitely laughed.
But
the Bruce Boys would have just laughed because we laughed.
But honestly, for the Rangers, it was a year they should be proud of. A lot of great steps for the team in the right direction. We saw coming out parties for Tom Hito, Adam Fox keep getting better and better. Igor Sorokin has established himself as probably one of the top goalies in the league for the next number of years. Gerard Gallant did a great job coaching. I think now the question is going to be for the Rangers, where do they go? Because with young teams, there's always two things that happen. Either you do what the Hawks do and you start a run and you start winning some championship, same with the Penguins, or you take a year back like the Avs did back in 2015. 14-15 where they made the playoff. They were the top seed in the Central and they got bounced and they struggled for a couple of years.
They retooled for about 2 or 3 years, if I recall correctly.
And Patrick Waugh had to leave behind the bench as well. So it was a completely different makeover there. So I think for the Rangers, it's going to be interesting on what they're going to do with some of their young guys. And what are they going to do with some of the guys they brought in? Like Tyler Mott was such a big addition for that team. Andrew Kopp fit in there so nicely. They're a little bit cap tight there as well. And then are you going to get another 50-goal season from Chris Kreider? I think that's going to be the biggest question for the Rangers. Can he even get 30 next year? Because 50 for him.
Well, we talked about it last week, and I pointed it out, and I was correct. He never scored more than 30 goals in a season until this year.
No, exactly. I think the big question is going to be, can Lafreniere break out? What's going to happen with Kako after getting benched in Game 6 of the conference final? So who they're going to bring in the second line center, because I think Ryan Strome, Dave, in New York, they're done. But they have some decision to make, and they have to understand which way they're going to go. I think the one thing for the Rangers is, and this has been unfortunate for them and unfortunate for the Knicks, where Brad brought this up last week. James Dolan, he loves toying with the Knicks, but for the Rangers, he'll let them be and do whatever. So I think
it's all so interesting. Listen, the last 20 years, right? The Rangers, they've had postseason success. They've been to, I think, 3 conference finals, a Stanley Cup final, and they've been a contender. Whereas the Knicks in 20 years, the brute force, as I think he's been mercifully told these past 2.5 years with us, next to no success. I mean, what do you think they do with Frank Vetrano, though? Do you think he comes back? I mean, that's a player of all the free agents. I kind of feel like that's the one I'd probably like to see back most for them.
I think if there's a player that's going to come back, it's going to be Andrew Kopp, who's going to come back.
Okay, so you don't think Vetrano then comes back?
Because they need a second line center, unless Strome, because I think Strome going to get a pay raise. I think if they can get another defenseman a centerman to really help out Zibanejad, take some pressure off him. You don't know what's going to happen with Barclay Goodrow as well. He's getting older, and that contract down the years is not going to be the greatest. So I think addressing the second line center position is going to be huge, especially what they did this year. I think they want to win a cup in the next year or two. They don't want to wait and take them
They've
steps
won
back.
one
And
in 82 years. Of course they want to win a cup. Seriously, the Rangers have won one Stanley Cup in 82 years. Take a step back from that. I mean, that's, I'm not trying to knock Ranger fans. I'm not trying to knock the Rangers here.
And then you just look at the cap hit some of these players get. They're really cap friendly with Igor Shesterkin, but I think 6.1. But then you look at other guys. Kreider making 7, Panarin at 10. I think the Zibanejad is going to get 9. Fox at I think 9, 10. Trouba at 8. And then you got
the
some other
Trouba
guys
one to me is the one I look at and say you're going to really get hit on the back end with that.
No, exactly. I think come down the years, that's the one that's going to hurt them the most, because when they got a signed defenseman, with Trouba signed an 8-year deal, I think this is only year 3 of that year. So he has 5 more years on that deal. So that's going to hurt them in the long run to who they can sign, who they're going to keep.
Absolutely. And I got a few comments in here from Carlos Arturo Chavez II, who's always with us here from time to time. So thank you, Carlos, for joining us here. And he says, Rangers have a huge opportunity, but if they do not build it, be the same as King Henry, playoff teams, but no rings. I wasn't liking the Gallant pickup, but Drury is not doing a bad job. Yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, Gallant comes in here first year. They go to the conference finals. They have one of the best regular seasons in the franchise's history. And obviously, Drury himself, Chris Drury, the general manager, he did a pretty good job also. And Chris, I know it's painful. Yeah, go ahead, Randy, jump in.
Sorry, Thomas, don't interrupt. The one thing is for Rangers fans, a lot of people think Drury did a few moves to make this team really good. Obviously, the deadline acquisition for Toronto, Copp, and Mott.
I think Ryan Reeves in the offseason was a good move for them.
But this whole team was built by Jeff Gordon. Like, the Rangers would not be here without Jeff Gordon, because he built this team. He's the one who drafted guys like Keto. He's the one who made the Zibanejad trade. He's the one who drafted Shesterkin and like the Fox and Panarin kind of landed in their lap, but how the Rangers are right now is a couple of luck in the lottery with Lafreniere and Kako, which I won't get into because we could go on for that for hours. But
listen, you're speaking to the choir here, so listen, you're preaching.
Jeff Gordon deserves a lot of credit for where this Ranger team is. I know last year with the firing, it had to do with the whole Tom Wilson incident. There wasn't much of a response from the management at that time. But this Ranger team, they wouldn't be as far without him. So I think now the question will be, Drew, can he take this team to the next level, which is now winning a cup?
Well, you know what? Real quick before I bring Chris in here, and I remember going on the air last year after they replaced Quinn and Gordon, and it was almost kind of like a questionable decisions they made, because the Rangers, they had a lot of injuries and they finished the season strong. And obviously everything that happened last year with the COVID year, you would have thought, okay, they would have got another crack. But unfortunately, they made the changes. You know what? Gallant was definitely the right move, despite some of the decisions that Rangers Twitter was definitely upset for. And you know what? Arguably so. And certainly when it came to Chris Drury, he did a good job as well. But Chris, obviously, I know it pains us as Islander fans to talk about the Rangers, but any thoughts here as we put a bow on their season?
No, I think they're at least a year ahead of schedule, right? Like Randy said, I mean, if anybody had them going to the Eastern Conference Finals and taking Tampa Bay to Game 6, that I would have never believed them either. So
no way. Listen, no way. No way.
So they're definitely a year ahead of schedule. And listen, no matter what they do, as long as they keep Shesterkin, I mean, that guy's arguably the best goalie in the league. And he's what? How old is he? 24, 25? So I think they're going to be good, unfortunately, for the next, half a decade at least with the talent that they have on that team. So I mean, I tell all my Ranger friends, I'm like, if you guys don't win multiple cups in the next 5 to 7 years, it's a disaster, because you guys
I'll remind you though, they have won in 82 years, so I'm not betting on them winning multiple.
No, I'm not betting on it, but I would expect them to with the talent that they have. I mean, and then when you look at the rest of the conference, who's really beating them outside of Tampa Bay? Who are you really afraid of in that conference?
I
Carolina,
think
maybe?
I think Florida should be good still, even with the goalie situation. I think Florida still should be good. I think Boston takes a step back, undoubtedly.
Islanders, I don't know what to think. Randy, give me an idea of what the Islanders are going to do this offseason.
I have no idea because last year
Okay,
I
I don't
honestly
either.
thought.
And
Lou
apparently,
Lamoriello was
Carlos
gonna make-
Chavez said the Islanders did a great job in cutting Barry Trotz.
Great job.
Carlos.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I honestly don't know what the
Okay.
It's Friday night. It's Friday night. What can I tell you?
Like, I think everyone thought last year Lamoriello was going to make a big splash and go get a top 6 forward. He did not do it, and that really, I think, hurt this team. I think going this year, there was some question mark because he resigned guys like Clutterbuck and Parise, who's getting up there in age.
Well,
And this
Clutterbuck
team
I
needs-
didn't get. I think I spoke about Clutterbuck in depth.
I
We had
think-
Brandon Gaines on last week, and that's what we talked about.
I think the big thing for the Islanders are what the big asset they have for this team, and can they get? I think it's going to be Varlamov because Sorokin's their guy going forward. There's no doubt about it. But if you can get something for Varlamov, because there's a backup goalie or a guy to play 30, 40 games is out there on the market, so that's a good point for the Islanders. But if they can address getting a top 6 forward to help Barzal, to help the scoring, because Eberle was a huge loss, this team I don't think going to be kind of the. They'll have a better year, maybe fighting for a playoff spot, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere close with the expectations were this year coming in, competing for the cup.
This is how I see the Islanders. There's famously an instrumental song from Rush called Limbo. That's kind of, to me, the Islanders right now. They're in limbo right now. I mean, they could be good or they could totally be, who knows, kind of like that song.
Right.
It had that high
right in
point
between.
Limbo.
They can
They're
go
right
either
in
way.
between. They can go
They have a lot of
either way.
They have a lot of players that are when they get hot, they're phenomenal. The Nelson, the Baileys, the Palmieri.
Well, Nelson had a strong year. I think the other guys for them
Very
didn't
good
have that kind of year.
Yeah. Bavelier. I like Anthony Bavelier. Like, he's a really good player. Andres Lee. Like, when these players are hot, they are phenomenal players. But when they're cold and struggling, there's no one else to pick up the slack, and it puts a lot of pressure on Barzal to do it. And he doesn't have that offensive support.
I don't think Barzal is that kind of player, and I've got a ton of comments before I get to the brute force here. And Carlos is definitely triggered here. He says Trotz, the game is past him. Okay. He's too passive aggressive, and his schemes do not work with the injuries. Islanders need to get younger, which I kind of agree. He said the moves last summer were terrible. Yeah, I mean, they weren't wonderful moves. I mean, Palmieri re-signs, meh. Parise signs here, meh. I mean, so yeah, I can't.
And he played good, Parise. You got to give him credit. He played.
Yeah, he played okay. I mean,
Yeah.
But you were looking, to Randy's point, you were looking for that kind of straws the drink kind of thing, and they kind of came up short with that. So I mean, those are some good points here. But the Brute Force Brad Weiss, I want to bring you in a different perspective with the Rangers because it's a young team ahead of schedule, and in a lot of ways, kind of like our SJC New York team, where they had a great season ahead of schedule, and now you have to follow up with it. I mean, how difficult is that, you think, in terms of now making that transition? Because in a lot of ways, the Rangers were kind of like our Golden Eagles, where they kind of came out of nowhere. It was definitely the golden era, and they flew upon us. And definitely now, though, they're contenders. Now they're not taking anybody by surprise next year, the Rangers. Nobody is going to be surprised if the Rangers are deep in the postseason. So how difficult is that transition to be able to go from a team that was basically on the outside looking in to now a team that now has to contend? I mean, walk me through that.
Yeah, so you're 100% right, Tom. They're not going to be a secret anymore to anybody in the NHL. And like you guys all said already, I mean, they definitely overexceeded expectations. Nobody saw them getting this far. And, you know, listen, I want to be the, I guess you want to call a naughty New Yorker. I'll say that, they could have won Game 3 and not let the momentum go back to Tampa. But, ultimately they didn't get the job done. But listen, we all know Tampa was the more experienced team. They had, they were the better team. And ultimately the Rangers, listen, they got to go through their trials. It's almost like, in a way, I like to compare it a little bit to like the Boston Celtics, Tom, where the Boston Celtics have been a young team, but they keep ascending. And they got from the conference finals, and they got to the finals this year finally, and they still have young players. Well, the Rangers have a bunch of young players. As you guys said, they have a guy like Igor Shesterkin to build around. I mean, he's a stud. I said it last week. I think he could be potentially the next Henrik Lundqvist for the Rangers.
He might be
And
better. I
listen,
gotta be honest. He might be better. He really might be better. He might.
He'll do something. Lundqvist
I
has
mean,
a
listen, it's obviously too early to tell. But I mean, he could be clearly. I mean, he's young, he's exciting, and we'll see. But like I said, you went through your trials. The best thing for the Rangers is that they got the experience in this now, and they played the best team in the NHL over the last 3 years, arguably. So I think the experience with the young talent, also with the first-year coaching staff. You can't forget that. It's a first-year coaching staff with Gallant, and they look this good in the first year. So. Yes, it's going to be a difficult challenge. The league's going to be more aware of them. They're not going to take them as lightly, but I don't think the Rangers don't care. They don't care. They want to be taken like they're a good team because they're young, they're fast, and I think they're going to continue to get better with pieces. Like you guys said, they made a lot of acquisitions this season. That's not easy all the time to get mid-season acquisitions right and make it work. So I think with the year, an off season, the young players getting this experience, I think this team's going to be really exciting. And like I said, and like you guys said, it's not just going to be for next year; it's going to be for years to come. And I'll just say this, just to make people laugh: if you would have asked me, you would have won a lot of money, by the way. I would have said the New York Knicks would have had a better season than the Rangers would have had. I would have said that at the beginning of the season.
I gotta be honest with you. You know what? You weren't that. Listen, you weren't wrong. Listen, we spoke. Before the season with the Knicks. No, I wouldn't have thought that was crazy, bro. I would not have thought that was crazy. No way.
Right. So, I mean, that's just the craziest part. But it's exciting for the Rangers. I'm looking forward to watching more hockey now. That's going to be one of my goals. Watch more hockey, less Knicks. And I definitely watch a team that's going to be winning for many years. So, it's exciting. And by the way, just to end my thing, I want to say welcome back to the show, Carlos. We're excited to see you back this week. Just don't give me that Miami Dolphins are going to win the winner, right? You got to give us good takes this week, Carlos.
You haven't forgot that. You haven't forgot
I
that.
haven't. Trust me. I have not. How good
before I get to Justin Gianelli, I got a few comments in here from Carlos because I guess Carlos is keeping it warm for John Gonzalez, I guess. So Celtics keep ascending, but they lack killer instinct and forgot to keep attacking the rim. Left too much on the garden floor with the Warriors winning. With free agency and the cap, hockey is getting well. Well, I definitely want to talk the NBA. I'll talk about that in a little while, so I will definitely do that. Carlos also reminds us that the Dolphins and Bills will both make the playoffs. So he's sticking to it. That's his story. So Carlos,
right.
Well, one of the teams, right? The Bills will make the playoffs,
the Bills
right?
Will definitely make
the Dolphins, I don't know about. But
I don't know about them.
Justin Gianelli is here with us, and he is live, and certainly looks like. And Carlos reminds us that the Bills will lose in the first round. So I guess that's his thoughts. He's sticking to it. But Justin, good to see you. Also, happy belated birthday to you, Justin. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You got the new haircut. You got a jersey on, which is certainly you and the Brute Force got matching colors on here. But I know you love to chime in here and give a thought or two on the New York Rangers season and put a bow on it before we move on.
Sure. Yeah, good to be here. I'm glad I finally could get in. My computer decided it didn't want to start up tonight, and then it wanted to freeze. So
Brad's always got issues with.
Oh yeah. Welcome to the club.
It was impossible trying to get on. But I mean, yeah, I think now that you look back at it, if you're a Ranger fan, you should be extremely proud of the season you had. The core is going to be there for years to come, and you can always say once you have a goaltender, you're always in contention, and that's what the Rangers have with Igor Shesterkin. Now there's going to be a lot of decisions this offseason because the guys they traded for are free agents at the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see what they can afford, what they can keep going forward. And, it's going to be a real interesting offseason going forward, especially with almost a changing of the guard in the Eastern Conference with, teams like Boston, Pittsburgh, and Washington potentially taking steps back. The Rangers and Hurricanes are going to be up there, obviously Tampa Bay. But this is their opportunity to build off of what occurred in this past season, and it'll be about going forward and sustaining the success for years to come.
Absolutely, and certainly Carlos says here 1/4 of that management went to stink it up to the Giants franchise. He means Buffalo. So he's going to stick to Buffalo. We'll come back to maybe the NFL later, but very quickly, I wanted to go over. Well, I've got about maybe 10 or 15 minutes more speaking hockey and Randy Dillon here. And I'll let Randy hang around afterwards because I do want to talk about the Vince McMahon story. I think most people here are probably following it. So I definitely think that we can talk Vince McMahon for a change. Good or bad, I think we can talk about that. So I'll let Randy hang out for us a little bit. Then we'll transition into baseball and the NBA. But I wanted to bring up a couple of coaching news and notes. Obviously, locally, John Tortorella, Philadelphia Flyers. Looks like he's the new head coach over there, if I'm not mistaken, Randy. And then Bruce Cassidy goes to Las Vegas. Wanted to get your thoughts on those.
Okay, for the John Tortorella, I think there's going to be a fight between him and the Philly fans. He almost fought the whole Calgary Flame team back in 2014 in a brawl. I think he's going to fight the Flyer fans because that just between him and his post game and how crazy that fan base is, it's nuts. But don't
you think he kind of fits that personality that they're looking for? He kind of fits them.
It does, but I don't think it. I think it fit the personality, but where the team going, that team is such in a wreck right now because a few years ago, Ron Hextall was really building a team that could compete. With
2020, they were looking the Islanders and Flyers, 7th game. Remember Chris in the bubble? 7-game second round.
No, exactly. And I think what happened was they made them chuck the Flyers ownership. They're impatient. That has been shown over the years. And they made some bad decision. They gave a guy like Kevin Hayes a ridiculous deal at $7.5 million.
They had Wayne Simmons longer than he should have hung on there. I mean, they had a lot of guys that were like,
exactly,
hung on too long.
And then I think for the Flyers, after the year they had this year, this team's into struggling. They have a very old, rugged defense now where injuries are a problem. And I think for Tortorella, it's either going to go with two things. I was listening here up in Vancouver. It's either going to go really well, or it could be like with the Canucks, the experiment the Canucks did.
No, the 1 year, that was a disaster.
It went like a nightmare. And I think that could have happened with Philly because the one thing Tortorella had in Vancouver was he had a veteran goalie in Luongo with experience. Unfortunately, that went to heck when the Heritage Classic. But Carter Hart, he's struggling at this point to find some confidence. I think maybe some better defense will help. But it's going to be interesting. But for Vegas, they've got the right guy there. His one job at the time, if they decide to hang on to Robert Leonard, is to rebuild the relationship with him because the relationship between the organization and him, I think, is broken. What happened with DeBoer, and the expectation for this team is going to be to win next year.
Absolutely. That core, it's Stanley Cup or bust probably still with that team.
And I think this is really for Kelly McCrimmon and Jordan McPhee. This is something that they did more with to save their jobs. I remember hearing they were saying that due to the injuries, they would have maybe gave them kind of a free pass. But I think the team Vegas has, and they knew Jack Eichel was bringing in injured. It wasn't like we're getting a full season of Jack Eichel. No, you knew you're getting a guy like Jack Eichel who's going to be hurt and not going to be coming back at 100%. You knew you had a franchise goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury that could play again, who took you the Cup final back in your first year, and you decided to trade it for nothing and really hurt the relationship.
Absolutely.
For this management team for Vegas, this is it for them, I think. I think with the core they have, they're getting older. They cleared up $5 million in cap with Daganov. It's cup or bust for them. And
they're right now. They're almost like the Cleveland Browns of the NHL in a way.
They're the San Jose Sharks territory where they were.
Well, that means that you got to win now. Otherwise, you're going to be in a 5-6 year rebuild. And Anthony Finkel wants to make sure he wishes a very happy birthday to the one and only Justin Gianelli, my fellow Gemini brother. So, what is Gemini? For those who follow signs, are you into signs, Justin? Geminis, you into that stuff?
Somewhat. I mean, I know the dates and all that, but I don't.
Oh, okay. So you're not into
all that garbage.
Some people I speak with all the time are like, people ask you to say, "What's your sign?" I'll say, "I'm a Libra." They go, "Wow, you're a Libra," and then people go on about their sign. So no, I mean that's why I'm legitimately.
Wow.
I get it all the time. I get it all the time. But Carlos says they are terrible with the team building, get stuck with motivation and healthcare. Okay. Buffalo did well dropping Eichel. Yeah, no question about that. Anybody else have a thought or two on specifically John Tortorella, the former Rangers coach, Stanley Cup winner, now the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers? Justin, you have a thought or two on that?
I'm so happy that he took this job because now
Why are you happy about that?
Because Philadelphia just becomes an even more big of a joke. I mean, they are the most garbage franchise, and they get an even more garbage of a head coach.
Well, they only have one postseason series victory in 10 years, and that was during the COVID year back in 2020. So it's a franchise that just seems like it can't get out of its way in the Philadelphia Flyers.
They could stay like that. All Philadelphia teams could stay like that.
Well, the Phillies right now are red hot. We're going to definitely talk about the Phillies later on for sure. And the 76ers have their issues. Eagles, I still think will be all right. But Chris, do you have a thought or two on John Tortorella?
I think it's got a really good chance of it becoming a poop show down in Philly. So I'm with Justin. I think it's going to really be a mess down there. It could get ugly.
Carlos seems to agree with Justin. He goes, black hole in Philly for basketball, hockey, and the Phillies. Yeah, I mean, the 76ers, with all their talent and players, haven't been able to.
A lot of questions for the Sixers, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of questions for them.
Especially with the way Harden performed in the postseason. The Flyers are terrible. And look, the Phillies are hot, but the Phillies are going to Philly. They'll be 500 all year.
Yeah, but 500 in the National League you might be able to compete for a while. They might.
I don't know about that because the way Atlanta's got to now 9 over because their win streak ended today.
Yep.
The Cardinals and Brewers are going to be well above 500. You have the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants. I don't know if there's a spot for Philly.
Yeah, honestly. I don't think so either.
Especially not they're going to go 82 and 80 because I could legitimately see at least 87 wins for the postseason.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I want to bring the Brew Force Brad Weiss in here very quickly because the 76ers got mentioned. I got to throw it to the NBA real quick. I mean, is it a black hole for those Philadelphia 76ers? I mean, James Harden gets mentioned here yet again. I think he's always going to be the aforementioned name here. And I think Carlos also adds the Brew Force that he thinks he saw James Harden in New York City clubbing. So
surprise! What a shock! What a shock.
Well, let me put it this way, all right? He's talking about the Philadelphia 76ers being a black hole. Has he forgotten who the New York Knicks are? I mean, that right there is the black hole, okay? At least the Philadelphia 76ers have been making the playoffs. They have a really good player in Joel Embiid.
Yeah, but would you be satisfied with that, though? But I know what the Knicks has been winning.
Listen, all right, I know that, like Boston, like New York, like Philly, we're not going to be satisfied enough with just making the playoffs every year and not winning championships, of course. But with that being said, at least they have a team that can compete and make the playoffs, all right, and potentially have that chance at a championship run every year. Where all I get to look forward to is whether Julius Randle's going to stink every night or not, like how badly he's going to stink. So that's what I get to look forward to. They at least get to look forward to seeing an MVP caliber player every night that just needs some damn support, the right support to figure it out. And we'll see if they get it right. But ultimately, it's not the black hole. If you want to talk about the black hole, all right, that means like as low gets. All right, look at the teams like the Knicks. Look at the Orlando Magic. Like, that is the black hole right there.
The Detroit Pistons, to me, would be also on that list.
Sacramento Kings.
Yep. That's John Gonzalez's team right there.
Listen, seriously, when was the last time the Kings made the playoffs? Was like George?
2004.
Weber days?
I knew it. George Bush was
they have the longest,
Sacramento Kings.
They have the longest
drought. That's a long time.
They have the longest drought currently in the NBA from not making the postseason.
Is that in professional sports?
If I'm not mistaken.
That's professional sports, right?
No. The Mariners 01 has the longest drought.
Oh, right. Forgot.
But if I'm not mistaken, the Kings are second with the second longest drought in North American sports.
Weber was there? Was it that long?
Mike Bibby.
Well, he was still there. A lot of that core from the late 90s.
Are you sure 04 Weber was there? I thought he was with the 76ers by then. Was he still there? I know Mike Bibby was on the team. Somebody can look it up while we get
team.
Fact check that.
That's interesting.
I'm not sure.
There you go, Carlos. At least you said that.
And Carlos says here, Joel Embiid can stay in Philadelphia. The team was a joke with those contracts. And, of course, John Gonzalez is in the house.
That
of
was his
sports
last full
authority.
year in Sacramento.
Oh, it was the last full year?
03,
Okay,
04
fair
was his
enough.
last full year in Sacramento.
Less Knicks, question mark, more hockey, question mark. I think the brute force got food poisoning at the All American Burger. I felt like I had food poisoning the entire day today. I had to be on the air on a show over on the Colory Championship Wrestling Facebook page. So if there's anybody who might have had food poisoning, it was yours truly. But we're here because I'll be through death and I'll still go on the air.
Yeah, 05-06 was there last year.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Still in the playoffs.
playoffs.
06.
And Bibby was there. You're right.
Because I remember Bibby. I remember Bibby very well there. Bibby was the headband guy. He always wore the headband on the court. And
Carlos, what are you talking about, Carlos?
Oh, you read it off. Good enough.
Oh, come on. Yeah, so you're telling me I should rather have Julius Randle than Joel Embiid? Come on, give me a break, Carlos. That's crazy. No one's smoking crack on this show.
And he says we already have trash contracts for 3/4 of the team already. And then he goes on further and says the last time the Knicks were actually relevant, you kids were in diapers, and old man Riley was like, forget this. Well, I wasn't in diapers. I could clarify.
Me either.
That.
I was unfortunately.
I was in grade school. I was in elementary school. That I can confirm. But actually, the last time the Knicks were relevant was more than that. It would have to be 2000 was the last time they were relevant. But yeah,
99.
Right? Well, yeah. Well,
2000,
2000 they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They lost to Indiana in 6 games. I remember
the following year. Okay.
Yeah, they were actually they were all right there in 2000. But then after that, they definitely went south afterwards. Lost to the Raptors in the postseason in 2001 in 5 games, and then famously the next season, Jeff Van Gundy basically he walked out in the team after it was like 19 or 20 games early in the season. He had a press conference, and I never forget it. And he basically just said, "I'm done. I'm not coaching the team anymore." And then they hired Don Chaney, and
I was going to say, wasn't that Don Chaney the next?
Yeah, that was Don Chaney. They had Lenny Wilkins for like maybe a year, maybe a year and a half.
Who was that coach of that team? I think it was either 03 or 04 or 04 or 05. Knicks made the playoffs, but they got
Lenny Wilkins.
They got swept by the Nets in the first round.
Lenny Wilkins.
There you go.
It was Lenny Wilkins. Brooklyn's
own. That was the
Kid
Kid Carter Jefferson team.
Yes. That was when the Nets were 2-time defending Eastern Conference championship. And Carlos says Jeff left too. Yes, which I just gave the history lesson on, Carlos. Yes. Jeff left after 19 games. They were 10-9, and he basically said, "I'm walking out." That's what he did. He left, and he never came back.
Writing on the wall. I think he knew the team was.
To, They brought Mark Jackson in. They tried to get a point guard. Didn't really work out. I mean, the Houston Spreewell thing, didn't really work out. They tried later on. They brought back Marcus Camby. Wound up Antonio McDyess came in here. That was a disaster. Yeah, I'm going down memory lane here. On some Knicks players. And Stephon Marbury came in here, and that was another
supposed to be for good talk and good memories.
How about Eddie Curry? Hey, the Brooke Forest. Do you remember Eddie Curry in a Knicks uniform?
Oh God! Oh my God, that was bad.
Listen, you know what? I'll be honest with you, Tom.
I'm sorry, that disaster.
When we get to basketball talk, someone had the audacity, all right, to bring up Jordan Hill, who we drafted the pick after Stephen Curry. To me the other day, just to throw it in my face a little bit more about how we were only one pick away from getting the greatest shooter and arguably a top 10 player in the NBA history.
Well, I still think nothing can top, and you probably won't remember this. Justin might. Chris will definitely remember it. But nothing can top when the Knicks drafted famously with the first-round pick one year, Frederick Weiss.
Oh.
No, Frederick
Weiss. They drafted the wrong Weiss. They should have taken me.
Well, you had to have been
any worse than him.
One. Yeah, but Frederick Weiss.
Here's a Knicks throwback name, Othello Harrington.
Oh yeah, the Georgetown play. Yeah, was that the? I think that was that the year the Knicks had 3 first-round picks. I think that was the year. Was that? I think the year when they drafted.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I remember buying or was it a John Wallace rookie card, thinking I was going to get rich off the card. But it
I
was
was
actually
so happy when they drafted John Wallace. I thought John
yeah,
Wallace
me too. I
was
thought
great here.
because he played in Syracuse that year, and it
Yeah.
was like he got them to the national championship
Yep,
game, and
he
I'm
was
like, wow,
awesome at Syracuse.
this guy's going to be great. I got all his rookie cards that year,
Yep.
and Anthony Finkel has chimed in because he loves when we talk basketball. He said, I enjoyed the mellow years. Definitely the year with Mike Woodson as coach. Yeah, that was good. That was 2012. Novak doing the discount double check after threes. Linsanity. Yeah, Linsanity was fun for what, like 4 months. Melo's big game against the Bulls on Christmas Eve. I remember that game. Never forgot the block by Hibbert in the playoffs. It's all been downhill since that moment. Yeah.
To be quite honest, I know they did reach the finals in that 98-99 shortened
And the
season
lockout year, yeah.
The lockout year. It's been all downhill for the Knicks since the Charles Smith game.
No, they got to Game 7 in the finals in 94. They got to the finals in 99.
Yeah, but they still lost.
But they got to the finals. I mean, I understand the point, and I kind of draw analogies in some ways to the Rangers team this year, to that Knicks 93 team. 2-0. You win the first 2 games. You're on the road.
You had your one chance to knock out Jordan.
Yeah, but they got to the finals twice. If they didn't get to the finals and didn't get deep into the playoffs, I would agree with you, but I can't say that. But Carlos says,
I don't know why. Because Jordan retired.
Well, the 2 times he retired after the first year, they got there, but they still got there. And Carlos says, I remember buying the Stephon Marbury, the Starberry shoes, which were like discounted. Oh. They were discounted for those who are here, and Chris will probably remember this. They were discounted for like those of us who couldn't afford like the Jordans, and their parents were like, okay, I'm not spending $200 on a pair of shoes because I'm not doing that. That's what the cost of my food bill was. And they were like $20 or $30 discounted shoes, and they were like the ugliest looking designs. Even I didn't buy them. So, in fact, I was actually asked the question, what was the best pair of shoes I had actually purchased before? And Starberries weren't on the list. I can promise you that. Mike Woodson teams were so overrated, but they had 1 year, 54 wins. I don't know if I could say they're overrated. Carlos says the Riley curse, bring him back. He's 77. You bring him back, Riley?
I think he's content running a successful organization in Miami.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Carlos, for anybody can understand this. Let me put it to you like this. For anybody, it's not even a sports fan. Why would I want to give up being on South Beach to come to New York and deal with all this? Seriously, take a step back for a second.
Yeah, no thanks.
No state tax.
Work under Jim Dolan. That's exciting.
He did it already. He ain't coming back.
Exciting about it.
We see here Carlos Chavez never bought them. Do not put those words in my mouth. But you did bring up the Starberry shoes, though, so they were terrible. And Anthony Finkel's got us about the shoes here. The Ewings were nice, especially with the pump. Such a thing of the 90s. Now, I'm trying to think, because I'm trying to think of the Ewing pumps. Were those the ones that, like, they were the white and black shoes that had, like, the basketball pump on the front hand? Because I'm trying to remember. I don't think the Ewing shoes were really like my time. I'm trying to think. I don't know if were they Reeboks? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, Reebok pumps. Yeah, the Reebok pumps.
Yeah.
I had a pair of them, but they weren't. I don't think they were Ewings.
Did they make you play better on the court?
Much better. Yeah. No.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't remember the Ewing
I think
pumps.
Jordans maybe, but no, not Reebok pumps.
Yeah, Carlos said Reebok had the pumps.
Idea.
Yeah.
It was a good idea, right? Because it tightened up the area around your ankles. So when you were playing, maybe it gave you a little more support.
And Carlos said Ewing did not have the pump. So I don't know. That's why I kind of thought the same. I didn't think think Ewing had the pumps for whatever reason. Didn't Larry Johnson have pumps? I'm pretty sure. Carlos has a joke. There's a catch to it. Knee braces, not pumps, because Patrick Ewing famously
always wore the knee pad.
Well, he couldn't really jump after a certain point in his career because he was a jump shooter. I think that was the joke. He was trying to imply that he couldn't dunk after a certain point in his career. So I think Larry Johnson had pumps. That I remember. But he was another guy with the Knicks that couldn't really jump much. But he was an okay player. Had the 4-point play. But that was the Knicks for you. So the Brute Force is looking at me right now like he's so mad because those who are watching this, because he's like, we're going down memory lane of like Knicks torture. I mean, I definitely didn't expect it. But People are listening. I got a bunch of people tuned in, so they like it. And John Gonzalez says, "Can we please stop
Oh, God.
defending
Oh,
Jim
man.
Dolan? We will make the Knicks great again."
Come on.
John, I think you're asking for too much. I'm not a
Yeah,
big
Dolan
basketball
and great don't
and
go
I know
together.
that's
I
a
don't think, you know.
high hope.
See, that's kind of sad, right? When Randy's here, right? And Randy is probably not the biggest NBA fan, but even he knows that the Knicks are they're putrid.
Exactly.
They're lethargic.
Exactly.
I mean, that's pretty sad. I mean, so certainly,
sad.
but
Talk
let's
about
transition.
transition,
I
It
want
is,
to
because you know what?
transition
To
into
be
something.
honest,
God.
New York used to be the basketball capital of the world.
No,
And
it
now
was. No,
we're
you know what?
joke.
I will tell you, in the 90s, growing up in the 90s, and I grew up in Brooklyn, I remember basically, I want to say maybe like first grade up until, I want to say maybe I just entered high school. Every single spring, the Knicks were deep into the postseason, at least into May, into
Oh,
the middle of May.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The Knicks,
If it wasn't for
were like-
Jordan,
and I'll be
we would have
honest,
made the finals.
I
a
know
lot.
I know everybody knows the Yankees is running New York, and the Yankees won all the World Series, and I'm not going to dispute that. Giants even had a couple championships in between, but if you ask me, now this is just me, right? Growing up as a kid, and I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn back in the 1990s, the New York Knicks, even though they didn't win a championship, they were really the dominant team in terms of interest in New York in the 90s, not the
The early
Yankees.
90s.
No, even the late up to the late 90s, even though the Yankees won the World Series, I wouldn't say until 98 is when the Yankees overtook the Knicks, because then 98 the Yankees had the special run, but I think even up to like 96, 97 going into 98, this was still the New York Knicks were the number one team. Even though the Rangers won a cup, Giants won a couple Super Bowls. Won't even bring up the Jets, the Mets, but to me this was a New York Knicks town up until 98 with the Yankees. And Carlos says here Patrick Ewing was a goalie in soccer and almost played on the Jamaican national team. Okay. What about it, though? I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious,
He would
but
have been some goalie. Think about the size. You know how many goalkeepers, excuse me, in soccer do you see 7 feet?
Yeah.
well, we could have used them with the Islanders in that time. I'll say that. I want to go to something that's probably like maybe just as bad as the New York Knicks. Well, actually, maybe even worse, because I got Randy here also. And he's a wrestling fan. I got a number of people who I'm sure are going to know about it. And this is the one time on a Friday I'll bring up wrestling in some ways, because usually we do wrestling all the time here on Sportswire Radio, and it is our bread and butter as to why we've done so well. And that's the news, obviously, of Vince McMahon stepping down here as a CEO of the WWE. And when you think about professional wrestling, even if you don't watch wrestling, Vince McMahon is pretty much the name that you think of. And obviously there's a number of different things that have gone on there in the news. And I have a couple of guys who followed wrestling. Some guys are also sports fans, and somebody like the Brute Force who was a player. But let me bring in Randy first, because Randy I know follows this stuff. And John Gonzalez has got a story, but I want to get to Randy first on Vince McMahon, because this will be a little bit more entertaining, I think. So, I mean, Randy, with all the stuff here, obviously it was also announced a little while ago that Stephanie McMahon, who actually left the WWE, is now taking over for now as the interim CEO. So what do you make of this story? I mean, we don't really talk about stuff like this often here on Sportswire Radio, but it does kind of involve sports, and we do a lot of wrestling here. It's our bread and butter. It's why we are as successful as we are, and it actually came up on the show I was on earlier this afternoon. And what do you think happens here, Randy?
I think this is the end of the line for Vince, to be honest. I think after everything he's gone through, everything in the 90s, the IRS, the steroid trials, Owen, Benoit, all the other stuff as well. I think how the world is today, there's no hiding this. We know Vince has had a history of having affairs with the ladies back in the day as well. I don't think there's any way he can come back from this, especially how sexual harassment has gone the world. I think this is it. I think it's more surprising Stephanie the one who's taking over, because I thought for sure Nick Khan would be the one, and there's been some actually funny jokes on social media saying how Nick Khan has single-handedly within a year taken down the whole McMahon family. But I think with Stephanie running it, this will be interesting, because as well as how much more will Paul Levesque, Triple H get involved? Will Shane get even more involved back in the company now that Vince is not there? But this is a very interesting time for WWE, because AEW, they've been making some waves as well. we saw this week with Jeff Hardy getting hit DUI. And
What a week for professional wrestling. Seriously, Jeff Hardy gets arrested again. Vince McMahon's involved in a disclosure settlement for millions of dollars. I mean, boy, professional wrestling definitely took it on the chin here.
Yeah.
But you know what? With wrestling, especially the WWE, right? WWF, whatever.
Sure.
For years, they've gone through how many not conspiracy, but how many of these things over the years, and they've survived, right? Going all the way back to the steroid use thing. What was that? The late 80s, early 90s. Yep. And then, like, as you go later on, you got how many of these wrestlers have died outside the ring?
Well, how about Owen Hart's death on a pay-per-view?
Right, inside the ring.
The Benoit death as well.
That was crazy. And then you got even worse, the Benoit thing. Remember?
I remember it very well. I remember watching the pay-per-view with my brothers, and we were like, "Where's Chris Benoit?" And they gave you like some. The story was, something happened. I remember it very well, and he's not here. And they wound up the next day, found out what happened. So yeah, then it was.
So the crazy thing is, I think with wrestling, it's like I don't want to say they like all this stuff, but they're going to survive, and they're probably going to turn this into a storyline anyway. Right, you said
Vince came out on SmackDown tonight. He actually came out and it was like business as usual.
Right. So
yeah, no. But I think how the world
is
now, though, Chris. Like, I think if this was maybe 10 years ago, we didn't hear much about harassment and all these scandals. I think how the world has gone in the last 2-3 years, we hear how many big scandals and sexual harassment. I think this is really the back that break the straw for Vince. If Vince had a history of this, so it's not like something you can turn a blind eye saying, "Oh, well, you can't." The big thing is going to be, I hear John Laurinaitis. He's done most likely. This is it for him. He's most likely going to resign. There's no way he can get out of this. It's just going to be more who's going to take control of the WWE at this point, and then can AEW out of all this, can they take a step forward? Because
they had their own problems also though, with Jeff Hardy. I mean, Jeff Hardy gets arrested again. That's embarrassing news. I mean, not to say that a DUI is as bad as sexual harassment, but it's still a bad thing. I mean, certainly wrestling in the United States took a hit on the chin. I mean, for anybody else here, anybody else have a thought on this? I mean, it's obviously in the news. People have an opinion. Does like anybody think it's going to be more bad news come out of here or what?
More about news, Tom, but the one thing I want to add there is this actually gets very interesting because they brought over Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes came over from AEW. Brandy's not working with the company, and she was an executive with AEW before she left. Does this open up the opportunity for her? And I don't think Cody said he had no plan being an executive anytime soon, but down the long term, possibly staying with the company.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think
it's a thinking, but it's just something I started thinking. Like, did this open the opportunity for the Rhodes family to get back indoor with the WWE?
Well, I think right now people are going to certainly be a little leery of WWE getting in the business with. And Anthony Finkel has chimed in because he loves wrestling. I know he definitely loves it. And one of his friends actually is a professional wrestler. That is, of course, Chris Urban. And I don't know why Chris hasn't come on the air one of these days, but Anthony's funny. He says, I hear a swanton bomb off the top rope of a police car, meaning Jeff Hardy incident. So, yeah, that might have been. I mean, who knows? I mean, I guess that might have happened. I mean, did anybody see his mugshot? He looked like he might have took a swanton bomb off the I know they say when you get a mugshot, it's supposed to be bad, but definitely his mugshot and Jeff Hardy definitely looked pretty bad.
And that right there, I think, killed AEW momentum because with MJF promo last week, how brilliant of a promo that was, or was it? I think it was a promo that just kills all the momentum right there because it just takes the spotlight on probably one of the best stories of the year, possibly what they were doing with him.
Oh, absolutely. No, listen, definitely that's something we cover here. And if you do like professional wrestling talk, let me give a cheap pop because I'm going to transition, obviously, here. And that is on sportnarium.com/play. We get a number of wrestling shows that talk about all these things like the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the Sit Down Marks, the Rewind Wrestling Podcast, Wrestling with the Truth, and many other shows here. So if you do like some of that coverage, you can head on over anytime on sportnarium.com/player here. And we are talking all things related here to the world of sports for the next few hours with some of my guys, including Chris Bezea, who's celebrating Father's Day this coming Sunday. So happy Father's Day, Chris. Chris does a great job for us with the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals. Justin Gianelli recently celebrated a birthday here, also with the Baseball Banter Show. Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat, and the Brute Force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC New York Golden Eagle. And John Gonzalez has a funny quote coming with wrestling. He says, how about a tag team match? Me and the Brute Force Brad Weiss against Rob Maraska and Randy Dillon. Well, first of all, let me address this because that would be almost like the mercy rule because Rob Maraska, who's not with us, he's like Ric Flair's age, if not older, right? So that's almost like a handicap match. I mean, poor Randy here is getting a 2-on-1 match. I mean, with the size of the Brute Force and John, I mean, Rob Maraska is really like Ric Flair's age, maybe even older. I mean, so that's not fair. I mean, at least give him a big guy to go in the ring with. Give him Anthony Finkel. I mean,
we'll take a page out of Flair's book and play a little dirty there.
I don't know. The Brute Force is over 6 foot, and so is John. Randy, you might be a great guy, but those are big guys. I mean, Rob Maraska is a great guy and all, but if you've seen him in person, I know him very well. He lives in my neighborhood. He's like Ric Flair's age, and he moves probably worse than Ric Flair does. So, we want to make sure we give you a chance to win that match. I would say Anthony Finkel would give you a good chance to win, certainly. So maybe that would be the way to go. But, John, you got to come up with a better tag team match there. But if you do like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, do also give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And also, cheap plug to the Sports Authorities group. Give them a like also on Facebook at the Sports Authorities. Chris is a moderator there. Myself, I'm a moderator there. The Brute Force chimes in there from time to time. Justin does. Neil Villapiano. So a number of our presenters in there. Bobby Tats, I think, is in there from time to time. So a number of different people like that. Also want to take the time and also congratulate Bobby Tats and the entire Pinstripe Chronicles team on 200 shows. Although, to be fair, Bobby, I thought you had like 2,000 shows because you do a show every day. So at this point, I would have thought you would have had like 2,000 shows at this point. But no seriousness, congratulations. If you like what you hear from the Pinstripe Chronicles, do give them a follow on Twitter at Stripe Chronicle. Also like their page on YouTube, Facebook. They're also a part of. I also want to acknowledge Donald Stewart, Rob Barros, also Mother Lynn and Chris for all the great works that they do for Sportswire Radio. They're also a part of the Pinstripe Chronicles, also with the Upper Deck podcast, so you can listen to that all throughout the week. And we'll play a Pinstripe Chronicles marathon, including the 200th episode tomorrow before our live DJ Thomas Clark comes on 8 to 10 British Standard Time. So if you like your favorites, whether it's from today, yesterday, in between, Thomas Clark will be spinning some tunes here on Sportswire Radio for a couple of hours tomorrow night, British Standard Time, so you can catch the Pinstripe Chronicles before then. But before I transition to other sports, Randy, I'm going to have you here for a couple more minutes. Just very quickly, give us a thought on Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals before I move on here, because I got to transition to baseball because I don't have Rob Maraska, but I got a lot to get into in baseball. So I wanted to give you a couple of minutes here real quick and set the scene for us here in the Avalanche Lightning, because I see it in the background of your room, house, whatever you want to call it. So set the tables for us very quickly before we move on to other topics and what we can expect in Game 1.
Game 1 was exciting. I think that was probably the most entertaining Game 1 I've seen in a very long time. Got to go back to maybe the 2018 final between Vegas and Washington, where back and forth action, not as many goals. We saw with the Avalanche, they were able to control Tampa, but Tampa found a way to fight back in the game. Vasilevskiy is going to put in. I think that's going to be interesting for Colorado, how they're going to handle that, because they haven't played a top goalie like that other than Binnington in Game 1 and 2 from the Blue Series. Going to Game 2, though, I think the two question marks on players I'm looking at is on the Colorado side, I'm looking at Darcy Kemper to rebound. He didn't have a busy night. He let in a few weak goals, and Tampa can score. For Tampa Bay side, I'm looking at Steven Stamkos. We saw the good play at Kucherov. Braden Point didn't look like he missed a beat. Hedman could be a little bit better, but I think he's a little banged up. But Steven Stamkos was quiet. McKinnon was buzzing. And with no Nathan Kadri right now for the Avs, the Lightning got to take a chance. So those are the two players I'm looking at. But if I would have to put a prediction, I say we're going to go tied back to Tampa 1-1 between the Avs and the Bolts.
Yeah, that's kind of the consensus I think most people think. And before I move on here, you have a thought, Justin, on the Stanley Cup Finals before I change over to different topics?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could, like Randy said, I don't think you could have gotten a better Game 1. I mean, it's just kind of what's been signature and signified this entire postseason. We've had a lot of great games, just, unlike the NBA where a lot of games were blowout, non-competitive, even though the series were very competitive. Like the NBA Finals went six games.
Yeah, it was a competitive
It's a
series.
competitive series, but each game was a double-digit victory for the winning team. In the NHL and the Stanley Cup playoffs, we've had very competitive games. The Lightning showed their championship. The reason why they're the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion, their heart. They come back from 3-1 down. They did not look particularly good early on, and they battled back, and they get to overtime. Like Randy said, I fully expect Tampa to come out in Game 2, play a much stronger game, and Vasilevsky to have his signature performance, and we're gonna go to Tampa 1-1. I'd be stunned. Now, my original pick was Lightning in 6, but I'd be stunned if we get anything other than 7 games.
Yeah, I think that this is the matchup. I know Ranger fans are going to be disappointed in hearing this, but this is really the matchup I think that most hockey fans wanted to see. And again, we'll see if the Lightning can.
Because unfortunately, I feel like the Rangers would be lucky to win a game in the series.
They would be exhausted at that point because
they would have played 21 games in 42 days.
Yep.
Come on, that catches up eventually.
You know what?
If I'm not mistaken, the 2014 Rangers were the first team to advance to the Stanley Cup final by playing all 21 games.
No, that was the Kings. The Kings were.
No, the Rangers were because they advanced first, but both teams that year
they
played 21 games.
Oh, yeah, they did play 21 games, yeah.
Both teams that postseason played 21 games, but because the Rangers advanced first, their Game 7 came first.
Yeah,
they get credit for being the first team.
You know what? I was thinking of this before the Cup final with Tampa Bay, right? They've won the last 2 Stanley Cups, but you know what? They don't have as much wear and tear as a normal team would have gone 2 straight, right? Because
I think they have. I disagree. I think they have it worse.
No, they got to think about it. The last 2 years, they've played 2 shortened seasons.
But
but the off seasons
have the same amount of games.
But Chris, to counter your point, they've had shorter off seasons.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, what was the
normal recovery time?
What was the off season?
Here's the other thing too. Right. I mean, here's the other thing too. The first year that they won it in the bubble. I'm not taking anything away from them. They still won it, but they won it in the bubble, so they didn't have to go on the road. But their season, right?
Right. Exactly. But their season ended in like late August, early September. They're back on the ice in December, January, whenever that delayed season started. And then you're playing January to July. And then Bettman basically made this a normal start to the year.
Right. But it was still 2 shortened seasons. You got to remember that.
It's a shortened season, but the off seasons also got condensed too. And I think that hurts in recovery time.
And the bubble as well, like that. I think that was the hardest cup they won because with no fans in the building. Forget the.
It's funny you said that because I was listening to the radio overnight and they were kind of doing obituaries.
I think it's easier.
Yeah, and this was actually brought up about the whole point about playing in the bubble and how Tampa Bay had it versus then into now, and it's definitely a fair point. And John Gonzalez says here, I like the Avalanche in 6. We'll certainly see. I mean, John Gonzalez going on a limb here. So we'll certainly find out. We'll find out. But Randy, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts because I got a lot to get into in baseball. I love having you. I love having you here for all the different things you do for us in Sportzwire. We mixed it up a little bit, did a kind of bit of wrestling. I always want to talk wrestling more, but we do so much wrestling on Sportswire. I think people kind of like they want to hear the other sports, but I love having you here for hockey. I'll definitely have you back on here next week. We'll talk a little bit more about the Cup Finals and see where we are in terms of some other moves in the offseason. So I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, share. I can't thank you enough for all you do for us, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I enjoy being with you guys every Friday. Highlight of my week, no doubt about it.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad somebody thinks the highlight.
Yeah. So, follow me on Twitter at Randy Dillon, DillonDillon. You can follow us on Facebook at The Hockey Fan Chat. We're trying to get a new episode out here in the next few weeks and before the Cup final, and then talk about the draft and the free agency. Things are trying to pick up the NHL. We saw some coaching hires. trades are happening, rumors
Yep.
are flying left and right. So this is going to be a busy, I would say 3-4 weeks for the NHL till free agency. Then we'll see a little bit of a slowdown.
Absolutely. Always is that way. And definitely, I do actually want to do a hockey themed show here, maybe after the Cup finals. So, hockey, I'm always chomping the bit because anybody who's been with me, like an Anthony Finkel from the beginning, that's how I got my start doing this, was covering hockey. So, I'm always looking forward to hockey. Although we love our SJC with the Brute Force, but we definitely want to get back into hockey. But, Randy, I can't thank you enough for all you do for us. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you for all you do for us here at Sportswire Radio. Can't wait to see you on Friday, my friend.
Sounds good, fellas. You guys have a great night. Take care.
Hi, Randy.
Take care.
Hi, Randy.
And that was Randy Dillon here. Of course, does a great job for us at the Hockey Fan Chat. You can follow him, Randy Dillon, on Twitter. I think he's on Instagram also. Maybe not as active, but we got to move on here because there's a lot I want to get into when it comes to baseball. But I'm actually going to start with the New York Yankees because the New York Yankees right now, they are the hottest team in baseball. And I want to bring in Chris because the Yankees, yet again, I mean, right now, and everybody was talking about the Braves, but I mean, this Yankees team, 48-16. I mean, I would not be doing my job on Sportswire Radio if I would not be leading off with those Bronx Bombers. I mean, just all around here, this has just been one run for the ages here. And I mean, talk about it because the Yankees, I mean, listen, nothing can contain them right now.
No, I'm sometimes I'm speechless watching this team. I don't think there was not a person out there that was expecting this to happen. It's ridiculous. I mean, their pitching it's off the charts phenomenal. I don't know what else to say, how good their pitching has been. And they're down 3 relievers right now in the bullpen, and their bullpen has still been lights out.
I don't even think you make Chapman the closer when he comes back. I got to be honest.
I hope he doesn't, but with what Boone was saying the other day, when he does return, it sounds like he's gonna close, but Holmes is gonna be in. I don't know the way he was wording it.
I'm gonna ask the Brute Force that question in a few minutes because I'd love to hear.
I don't think he should. No, I agree. Holmes should be the closer, but from what Boone was saying, he didn't give me confidence that he's gonna be the closer.
I don't think it changed what's right now. I don't think you. Why would you want to go back to that? Why?
The only problem I have. Okay, with when Chapman comes back,
the
problem is Chapman's been a closer his whole career.
I agree.
I don't know how he's going to accept being a 7th or 8th inning guy.
Hey, John Franco did it. Listen, John Franco did it with the Mets those years ago. He became a setup man.
Right, but that was at the end of his career. That was when he was.
But you know what? Sometimes you got to suck it up for the betterment of the team.
I'm not saying that, but it's a mental thing. It's hard. You see it. Some of these guys could be great setup guys, but then they become a closer and they're totally shot. And it's just the opposite.
Or vice versa.
Right. So that's why it's going to be
the biggest example of that was the year Craig Kimbrell had last year for the Cubs and the White Sox. Absolutely dominant. ERA under 1 for the Cubs. He's closing games. Gets traded to the White Sox. Liam Hendricks is the closer. Had a disastrous second.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It happens. I don't know. It's going to be interesting when he does come back. Maybe they give it to him, and then if he messes up, hey,
I think it's short. If he gets it, it's a short leash.
Yeah,
it's a short leash because Clay Holmes is on a run.
How do you mess with that?
Clay Holmes is on a run that we haven't seen since Mariano Rivera.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I think he tied Rivera's record, 28 consecutive scoreless outings.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And even, I can't believe I'm saying this, also Jabba Chamberlain territory. Remember Jabba Chamberlain when he first came to
he was lights out. When he first came up, he was lights out. The crazier part is that the offense still is not, it's not what it should be because there's like a third of the lineup giving you nothing.
But I will say it. He's coming on, though, Joey Gallo. 2 more hits today. He's coming on. He's got 9 home runs now. He's got 4 home runs this month. I mean, I actually had somebody, one of our listeners actually called me and asked me about the Yankees. And the Brute Force will appreciate this because it was the head coach over at the 5-Town Sound men's basketball team, Greg Drizel. And he talks about the Yankees. And I said, how about Joey Gallo this month? And he's still, how could you mention Joey Gallo? But I said, Joey Gallo's OPS right now this month it's over 800. He's having a good month. He can't deny it much longer. He's had a
stuck
good
with-
month.
But
He's
you know
still
what?
public enemy number one.
Yeah.
Him and Aaron Hicks are still public enemy number one.
Well, they've done nothing. Gallo, Hicks, and I'm going to throw Donaldson there too. Donaldson.
No,
has done
Donaldson
nothing.
definitely throw in Donaldson. Donaldson.
Defensively,
I
he's
think
great.
he's been more a bust of those two because you know what?
You
Again,
expect more.
yeah, pretty much. And
But at
John
least he's
Gonzalez got
giving
a
you a
few
good
comments in here before I get to the Brew Force. Unreal. The Yankees got Tyone and Holmes from Pittsburgh. Absolutely.
Oh,
Gotta
fine.
I
give
think,
Cashman credit.
I think the Holmes is way more of a surprise. Tyone at least showed flashes of being a very solid pitcher at Pittsburgh. Clay Holmes,
But
I
I
mean,
think his point,
he
correct
had
me if
some-
I'm wrong,
he-
John,
I
I
was
think
I was listening to the radio this morning, and they went through his career. Just a disastrous. He was terrible in Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and
I
then
don't know
all of a sudden, he's.
But I
Great.
think the point that John Gonzalez might be trying to make is that with the Pirates, they're one thing, and they come to the Yankees, and it's like they find this magic potion here. And I want to bring in the Brute Force Brad Weiss because obviously he's definitely watching things here. And John Gonzalez also brings up Matt Carpenter. Also, another great move.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get into that here for sure. But the Brute Force, I want to ask you this question because obviously you've kind of been in this situation where you were the guy, kind of like Aroldis Chapman, where you were the guy at SJC, you were the starter, and then your teammate Jonah Caldwell kind of took your minutes, and your former coach Mike McSlurry pretty much kept him in, and that was kind of the end of your career. But, I mean, is it that simple? I mean, when Aroldis Chapman comes back, I mean, what do you do here in a situation? If you're a player, I mean, walk me through how you go through this.
Yeah, this is a really tough call. And I would go back and forth on this because, I totally see both sides of it. I heard Chris talking about, listen, Aroldis Chapman has been a closer for nearly his entire career. How do you take him out of that role and expect him to have success? On the other side of things, the last time we saw him closing games, he wasn't so great. He was kind of shaky up and down. I would actually argue the Yankees could actually probably be like I don't even know what do we say, 48-16 right now.
Yeah,
They could probably
48-16.
They could probably be 52-12 with
That's what I was thinking. Good point. That's exactly what I was thinking.
They probably could be. But listen, he's been in that role. That's his comfort zone. I think if I were the manager, I think I would give Chapman that short leash. I would give him a chance to get back into that role. Now, here's the thing. I'm gonna go even further because you guys have already talked about this man. I'm gonna call him Mr. Immortal today because this man, Clay Holmes. I mean, geez Louise. I mean, this guy has been like unhittable, like unstoppable. I mean, he's been unbelievable. And like Justin said, he was a nobody in Pittsburgh. And he comes to the Yankees. And all of a sudden, he's I think he's the best relief pitcher in baseball right now. And I actually am going to go as far as saying, people are going to be like, what are you talking about, Brad? Really? I think that if Holmes gets injured, that might be the biggest impactful injury the Yankees could have this season.
Really?
Absolutely.
I think, we're talking about like, all right, well, if Aaron Judge gets hurt or if Stanton gets hurt, I don't think that's as big of an impact as if Clay Holmes gets hurt. I think he has had that big of an impact on the New York Yankees.
It would be, but I still think if Judge got hurt right now, it would be.
Yes, it would be. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be an impact if Judge got hurt. What I'm saying is, I think the biggest impact would be if Clay Holmes got hurt right now.
Because you got to remember, right now you're three guys down in the bullpen. Right, Green's done for the year, and you got Chapman down, you got Loizaga down, and you still got Britton, and Britton's going to supposedly come back, late August. Now, if these guys come back, this bullpen's going to be ridiculous.
I mean, you got former big-time closers in Britton and Chapman. I mean,
yes. And, listen, I mean, another guy in Loizaga wasn't having his best season to start, but we know what he's capable of. So, listen, I'm really honestly just amazed by the Yankees. I mean, the one thing I'll say is that, we knew they were going to be a good team. We didn't say they weren't going to be a playoff team. We said they'd be a playoff team, but obviously I had other teams ahead of them. But the key, I think, for the Yankees is not only have they stomped basically every team in their steps.
The teams that they're supposed to beat.
They're doing that, and they're stomping on teams like the Rays that they've struggled with.
Toronto's another team they've
just stomped on Toronto again today. I mean, 12-3. I mean, they're not just like taking it light; they are stomping on teams. They're giving
48-16.
no
they're stopping
chance.
Everybody. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close. Like they're not. I think they played closer games with the Orioles than they have with the Rays this year, and the Blue Jays. I mean,
Well, the Orioles and the White Sox are the only two teams to beat them in a series.
Right,
Right,
which
right, 'cause
is
the White
just
Sox beat
amazing
them in
because
the
those are two
Bronx.
teams that are
Right.
struggling. The White Sox with the injuries, and with the Orioles are just the Orioles. It's really crazy to think that, but it's true. So the Yankees have just been unbelievable. There's nothing bad to say about them, but everyone knows it though. The biggest question is not about now. We all know they're going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to win the division. But the question is, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Because we all think now that there shouldn't be any debate that they should be in the World Series at this point. I mean, they're leaps and bounds better than every team in the American League right now. So, they have to get to the World Series. There's no excuse. They have to get there. And the guy who has to lead them there, which we're not talking about at all because the Yankees are having a lot of success, but Aaron Boone has to do it. And he's no one has to talk about him because of the way the team is playing. But when it comes to those crucial decisions in the playoffs,
remember last year at this same time last year, all I heard about was Aaron Boone. This year, not a peep.
No,
right?
no one's talking about it.
Winning, right? Nobody cares, and he's not going to get the credit either, right? When they're winning.
No, and Chris. Yeah, I love that you say that because that is the life of a coach. I mean, sometimes when you're not doing well, everyone gets on you, but when you're doing well, you don't get enough credit as you should.
It goes the opposite way, right? You get too much. You don't get enough credit when they win, and too much blame for the
when they lose.
Right.
Yeah,
hey, that's the life of a coach. Yeah. I know it just from my experience now as a coach. You can't get too high or too low, and you can't feel good enough because as soon as it goes downhill, you'll get ridiculed like crazy. Some people compliment you. You can't take it too much because as soon as things go down, they'll go right and they'll hate you 2 seconds later. So,
and I got a couple of questions from John Gonzalez, which is for Chris, and I'm going to get to in a second. But baseball, to me specifically, I know Justin played baseball, and the brute force was an athlete and done 1,000 things. Baseball to me is like a marathon. You just have to pace yourself throughout these. Yep. Remember, not like the other sports, right? You got the NBA, you play 6 months, but you have so many off days. The NHL, you get at least 1 week break. Everybody gets it. The NFL, it's basically a 3.5 to 4 month season, right? But Major League Baseball, you play basically 6 times a week for 6 months. So basically, you have to play it like a marathon.
Right?
John Gonzalez has got a question for you, Chris, and it's a good one. And John says, I see the Yankees trading for Benintendi. Whom does Chris see the Yanks bringing in? Good question for you.
Yeah, I would say Benintendi, and another guy that we keep hearing about is Happ from the Cubs too.
Yes, I heard that overnight. I heard that. You guys mentioned him on the Talking Rival show, if I'm not mistaken. As well.
The one, I mean, the only other, I think, trade option I could see, because we're an injury away at shortstop from who playing shortstop right now. It would either be Gleyber Torres or Marwin Gonzalez. So that would be, for me, I would keep my eye out for like a utility guy that could play short, because
Benintendi is the guy. I was watching him against the Giants this week, and obviously we had the games on there.
Pretty good left-handed bat, for the outfield, right?
Now he's in a walk year too, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes,
I think so. Yes.
Happ, I think, has 1 more year left, so he's got a little more. But I keep hearing those names, and I think one of them is going to come, because they can't keep running out Hicks and Gallo, giving them nothing. Even though, like you said, Gallo is starting to get a right now. I'm not going to say anything. But
my only thing with Gallo is he's going to wind up hitting 20 home runs, and there's going to be people, like I'm hearing on the radio all the time, that people said, Gallo's actually, it was somebody last week that said Gallo, it was 2 weeks ago, actually. 2 weeks ago, I think it was the Angels when they came into town, that somebody actually said that Gallo right now was better than Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. So there's going to be somebody out there. Now, I'm not going that far. But Gallo is on a run right now. But Hicks, I agree with you on Hicks.
My one big issue with the Yankees, and they brought it up the other day on the Michael Kay show, was you got 3 starters in the rotation right now that the Yankees have that we don't know how they're going to do in the long run, right?
Right.
Number 1, Severino hasn't thrown a full
question mark
4 years, right? That's one. Number 2, Tyone missed a lot of games last year, so he's coming back from an injury. And the more important one is Nestor Cortez. Nestor Cortez has never thrown over 100 innings in the major leagues. And the only time he's ever thrown over 100, it was, I think, 117, and that was 4 years ago, and that was in like AA and AAA. So Like, how do you?
Isn't he close to 100 already?
Yeah, so you're going to have to space these guys out a little bit. I think you're going to have to skip their start every now and then. You're going to have to do something. You can't just say, just keep throwing them out there.
Well, that 11-game lead, I'll tell
It's
you
a
what, that
marathon.
11-game lead's coming in handy then because
Right.
If that's the case, I mean,
I think you're going to see.
I wonder if the Yankees target a back end of the rotation starter.
Yeah, I could see that.
Why not give these guys a little bit of a rest? Make sure that they have enough, because these are the guys you're going to want in October.
Right, exactly.
So you need to make sure that they're at full strength and they're not wearing down, hitting that wall.
At least Clark Schmidt, he started yesterday. I mean, he only went 3 innings, but he's a guy once I think the bullpen gets healthier, I think they'll send him down to AAA, and I think they'll switch him out. So I could see that happening. But that's the thing that's been bothering me. I've been bringing it up all the time with Patrick on the Talking Rivals show, and I keep saying, I'm like, they got to figure this out because they give the batters a break every 2 or 3 days. Like Judge needs a day off after 3 days or something. But so that's why I think they're gonna incorporate it. They have.
And John Gonzalez has got a comment or two, and I got Carlos in here. Carlos
I would love to also, but.
Yeah, and he would say, I would get rid of Donaldson, Hicks, and Gallo, but who would want Donaldson?
Donaldson's great at third, though. I mean, he's a great glove.
Well, Donaldson was, correct me if I'm wrong, 1 year? Was it 1 year deal?
I think he's got one more year left.
I think it's 2 for $50.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, well, yeah. You're stuck with that one.
Yeah, he's not going. And Hicks has 3 more years at
like $10 million a pop, right? $10 million.
Yeah, 30 left.
So you ain't getting rid of him. Yeah.
Gallo's the only guy you can move. So if he's getting hot, maybe I think a team like the Brewers, because the Brewers need another bat.
And speaking of the Brewers, very quickly, the Brew Force. Did you see the Brewers jersey designs?
Oh,
Idiots.
Very bad.
Here's the thing, though.
That one, not good.
What I should say, Tom, is that listen. First of all, they tried to take like a scheme of what our Brew Crew jersey looks like. I think they should have asked us for, our jerseys. Our jerseys are a lot better than theirs. So,
because they didn't want to pay royalties to you?
I don't know. I mean, listen, it would have been nice. It would have been a nice Brew Crew endorsement, I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you that. Listen, it would certainly be a little bit more of a lucrative endorsement than our friends over at Ridgewood Station Tavern. Of course, we do love Ridgewood Station Tavern, but they aren't as lucrative for us. But Carlos says here, Yankees need to make that trade soon. Torres for 2 pitchers.
No,
you're not trading Gleyber Torres.
Oh, Carlos, I told you not to have these crazy comments tonight, Carlos. This is the one. You can't do that.
No.
Come on.
You're not doing that.
Gleyber Torres has been great for the Yankees. How do you trade for 2 pitchers? And who are the 2 pitchers, by the way? Who are
they? Right. 2 pitchers.
Well, you got to think about who are the teams right now that you'd be trading with. Obviously, the Cubs, maybe Detroit.
Who do they got to trade you? Who do the Cubs got to trade?
Arizona.
Pitchers, right.
And Carlos responds and says, only player who has value at the moment. Okay.
Yeah, to the Yankees.
Yeah, his value is to the New York Yankees.
Right.
And John Gonzalez says, no way you trade Torres. Carlos put down the ball. If John Gonzalez is saying it, bro, I mean, that's big words from John Gonzalez. The leader
Yeah, that's crazy. That's definitely Carlos' crazy take of the night, I hope.
What's going to help the Yankees and these pitchers maybe kind of space them out a little bit is the potential impending return of Domingo Germán.
Right, he's another one. Right.
So, plus if he's on like maybe a 6-day rotation schedule, he could kind of ease himself back in, and then you have another fresh arm.
I think they would. You know what? They brought it up to Boone the other day, Michael K, and he says I don't think we would go to a 6-man because I don't see that happening. So maybe they bring up Germán and skip one of their, like whenever they skip one of these guys starts, it'll be Germán doing it. Something they're going to figure
probably
something out.
Because you know what it is, they want to keep Cole every 5 days.
Right.
They don't want to push Cole to the next.
No, you don't need to now because you're up 11 games, right? So
so you could do it now, right? I mean, it's and the second half. If it gets to 20 by the middle of August, that's when you got to start saying,
Well,
okay.
I tell you what, I know they've got the Rays and again coming up in the Astros, but the way the Yankees are playing, they could have it at least to 15. I would certainly say 15, 16, kind of play
Yeah,
it
by
down the
All-Star
line.
break.
And Carlos says no one wants Gallo, Hicks, or even Donaldson. I still contend that somebody might take Gallo. I still
Yeah.
contend.
You know what? In the last year of his contract, they might try to catch lightning in the bottle for a couple of months. Now,
I like what Chris brought up. The Brewers is a good fit for him.
They need offense. He's a good fit for them. They don't
have a great outfield situation. I mean, we just saw him here in New York. They did lose 2 out of 3 to the Mets, but but it'd be interesting. What are the Brewers trading? What kind of pitching are they trading? Because they're in a need. They're in a need for pitching right now too. Between the Woodruff injury and Freddie Peralta being on the IL.
But Woodruff is coming back though, right? He's already throwing AAA games.
I thought they had to shut him down because of the finger numbness.
I thought I read it today that he's throwing a AAA game.
Okay, maybe that got updated.
Yeah, he's going to give it's going to take him a couple of starts, they said. So
no, Carlos, they are not trading Josh Hader.
No.
Pipe dream. You
Carlos,
that.
Oh my God.
I like Carlos. Carlos at least brings it. There's some people they'll comment, and there's a guy, Joe Wynn, that comments sometimes when I do wrestling, and he just goes totally off the topic. So at least Carlos is going within the topic here. And John Gonzalez brings up here the Manny Benuelo story is very compelling.
It's a nice story, but he's not going to replace one of the starters or something like that. He's like today, he came in when it was 10-1. You know what I mean? That's the kind of pitcher. Let me
ask this question, sticking with the Yankees, and I'll get to the Mets, and I do want to give the Yankees some time here because the Yankees are on a run. It would be foolish to ignore the Yankees at this point, but Aaron Judge is not in the home run derby, Chris. Yeah, you have an issue with that, or what's your thoughts on that?
No, I have no problem not getting in. I mean, he's been in it before. I think he won it 1 year, so to me, it's not a big deal. He doesn't have to prove anything. I'm kind of happy he's not going to be in it because maybe he'll get hurt or something doing it.
So you wouldn't want to, as a Yankee fan, you wouldn't want to see him in it.
I'd rather see if Stanton gets to the All-Star game, I'd rather see him get in it.
Okay. And for you, the Brew Force, somebody obviously who has been a player, and what do you think about it? I know because we've talked about this in the past with guys not playing things, and this always comes up when we speak about the NBA All-Star game, but you have an issue with Aaron Judge taking a pass on the home run derby? What do you think?
So surprisingly, because a lot of people around me have a totally different answer, surprisingly, I'm actually with Chris on this one.
I was expecting a complete opposite on this one.
I don't have a problem with it.
Right.
Now, a lot of people around me are like, this guy, how is he not doing it? He's this big guy. Everyone wants to see him. Of course everyone wants to see him. But ultimately, guess what? I don't think Aaron Judge is worried about the home run derby. He's worried about winning a World Series right now. And, he's worried about his money that he wants to get in the offseason. Right. So he's not worried about the home run derby. All right. So in the end, of course, we all want to see him. Of course, as a player, like if I was another player, oh, God. Of course, as a player or contemporary, we want to see him. But ultimately, I mean, he's on the best team in baseball right now. He's got a contract he's working for. Everything's going right. He doesn't need to be in the home run derby. He's going to be in the All-Star game. That's good enough for him.
So conversely, and I'll ask this for Justin and Brad, and I'll come back to the Yankees in a second. As Met fans, do you guys want to see Pete Alonso win the home run derby?
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, but you don't. But Justin, you'd want to see Judge in the derby, or?
Yo, 100%. I think he is the softest person on earth right now. He is afraid to find out that he's not the best power hitter in New York, which is true. Which is true because Big Meat Pete keeps hitting home runs. I
don't know. Judge is on a big run right now. That's a tough
Hey, Chris, this is most of what I'm hearing from my people. That's exactly what Justin just said.
Really? Okay.
Aaron Judge needs to man up and go toe to toe with Pete Alonso.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I had a feeling this was gonna come. So I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'll put it on Twitter after we get off the air, and I'll let it sit for a little while. I'll put a poll up right now. Who's the bigger slugger, Aaron Judge or Pete Alonso?
Chris, I'm gonna let you react to that.
I'm sorry. That was good. That was good.
All right. So we'll see. And I got another comment in here from Carlos. They need to just make it Judge versus Polar Bear. Yeah, I mean, you know what?
I actually would enjoy that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that would be cool if you did it just one-on-one.
What if? All right. So what if Stanton makes it to the All-Star game and Stanton gets into the home run derby? Then it would be Stanton versus Alonso.
Fine. I mean,
why not Judge though?
And then
Judge
what
has
if
got
Stanton-
25 home runs. Judge
Let's
is
say
the
God
guy right
forbid
now.
Stanton wins. Does that mean he's the
Maybe it does.
home
Maybe it
run
does.
champion of
Giancarlo
New York or
Stanton's
something?
Giancarlo Stanton's had his own memorable moments in the home run derby.
Yeah, I don't know. It's for fun. Listen, if it was at the end of the year, yeah, that would be awesome. But not now. It's you know what? It's about like Tom said. It's about winning the championship, and it's about his contract coming up.
And I do want to go back to Judge for a second.
$50,000 home run derby.
And
winning.
well, I do want to get to Judge for a second, but let me put Carlos's comment on here. He says, "Yeah, but Stanton doesn't lead the American League for home runs." Yeah, I mean,
It doesn't, but
Stanton still has hit
true.
59
great
home runs
year.
in the season. I mean, but let me ask you a different question, Chris, when it comes to Aaron Judge, and I'll go over to the Mets side of things in a minute or two after this. But Judge is having a special season. When you think about seasons that we've seen here, even in New York baseball history, just in baseball history right now, he's on a pace right now. I mean, last I checked, he's on a pace to hit close to 70 home runs and knocking 130 plus runs. And it's the seasons that, you know, if you want to count Bonds, you want to count Sosa, McGuire. If you don't want to count him, it's arguably the best season we've seen since Roger Maris. But I mean, I almost have to start asking it because we're now, I would want to say, about 2/5 of the season in the books right now, mathematically. I mean, Chris, can Aaron Judge hit 60-plus home runs? Is this a season that we're going to see and look back and say, you know what, we're never going to see it again? Or is it just going to be too difficult to keep up with this pace? What do you think?
I think it's possible. He's got to stay healthy, obviously. So that's always been an issue, and they like to give these guys rest, so that's going to hurt him, I think, in that way, because he's not going to get the at-bats. But, I mean, the way he's doing it, yeah, I mean, it's very possible he could do it. But I think eventually it's going to hit, you know, he's got to hit some kind of a wall or something in, you know, late July, maybe sometime in August. And it's going to start to slow down a little bit. So I'll say if he stays healthy, he'll hit like mid-50s. But I don't know.
Okay.
60 is tough, man. But the way he's hitting them, yeah, he might do it. But if I'm betting, I would bet just under. I would bet like maybe low to mid-50s.
Carlos says the 60 homers depends on Rawlings in the American League pitchers. Well, if they don't pitch to him, I mean, to be fair, that was the thing famously.
It's hard to pitch around him because, you know, you got Stanton behind him.
Too much in that lineup.
Yeah.
There's too much in that lineup to pitch around Aaron Judge.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's really that. But the good thing is with him, I don't know if it's good, but what gives him more at bats is he bats first or second now in the lineup.
Yep.
So that'll help him. That helps him get an extra at bat a game. So, you know.
Carlos says they're going to juice these baseballs.
If they go back to that,
Right.
yeah, then there's a really good chance he hits over 60. But
I think he's hitting him anyway, though. I mean,
he's not hitting. Yeah, it's true. When his go. So
yeah, when he hits it, listen.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that could be in a wrestling ring.
Here's the bigger question, because I thought this was the one you were going to ask me.
Okay.
If he has this season, this great season, whatever he ends up, let's say he ends
I
up
know where this is going. Go ahead.
55 and 120 or whatever, and they win the World Series. Everything goes perfect. Do the Yankees pony up and go the
That was
extra
my
mile?
next question. You did.
They have to. They have to.
I don't think they have to. I think they're going to say they might go a little higher than what they offered him, but I don't know if they're not going to go 10 years. There's no way they're going 10 years.
Brad, what do you think? I heard you jump in. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, well, first I'll answer what you guys said before about 60 home runs. I think he can do it. Listen, I'm not going to go and be like Chris Woodward out here, but what I'm going to say, all right, is that you guys have to remember where Aaron Judge plays baseball. It's Yankee Stadium, right? You know, if he could still hit those home runs to right field, he can get it. I really think he can. Now, to Chris's point, though, you know, it's interesting because I'm looking at tonight's lineup and Judge batted first and Donaldson batted second. So I'm kind of curious how they didn't protect him with anyone behind him, because that lineup, right, would encourage teams to walk him, right, and then pitch to Donaldson. I see that changing. Maybe that's just tonight's lineup, but like I said, that could affect it if that's the case. But if guys are behind him and you have to pitch to this man and he's playing, you know, a lot of these games at Yankee Stadium, I think he can do it. Now, with the other half of this question, the Yankees better pay up. They better pay up. This man, all right, you better pay all the dollars, everything you got. Cashman, get all your cash out, all right? Because this is the face of the Yankees, all right? This guy has to remain a Yankee. You have to find any way possible to make it happen, all right? And listen, you know, people are going to say, oh, well, you can't overpay, you can't do like Robinson Cano, you know, where you give him a big contract, you know, you end up leaving, but you can't.
Yeah, it's not the same player, though. This is not the same.
No,
he doesn't have the same impact.
And that's my point, where, you know, he has a greater impact, in my opinion, on this team. His presence, right? He's a great fielder. You know, he's obviously a threat every time he's up. And again, you know, he's the face of this team right now. So you have to, if you're Cashman, whatever it takes, make sure he's on this team for many years to come. I'm not going to put a year number on it because, yes, Chris, I do agree. I don't know if they're going to give him 10, but, you know, they got to give him a lucrative deal for as many years as it is.
And Carlos says here, Judge will be the next San Francisco Giant.
I could see him going there.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Because someone's going to give him 10 years, $400 million, right? There's no way. I don't see the Yankees going much more than 7 or 8 years for him because he's going to be 31.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't
All
make
right, well, let me bring up this proposal because I can't believe I'm quoting this caller and Justin know who I'm talking about. But Stuart from Brooklyn last night with Sal Licata. I knew Justin was going to roll his eyes. It was 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm working. And Stuart from Brooklyn actually said something rational. He said 8 years, 325, and a 9th year option. Would you do that?
That's $40 million a year.
Yep, $40 million a year with a 9th year option. That would put him at
I don't think they're going to go that high. No,
you don't think so?
Wow, Chris,
another team,
hard line.
I could see another. Think about it. They drew the line with Derek Jeter. They drew a line with him, and they said, "Here, this is what we're going to offer you." And he goes, "I'm worth more than that." And Cashman told him, "Go out and get a better offer, and then come back to us." And he came back to him, and he signed the Yankee deal. It's simple as that. Cano is another example. Here's your 7 years. You want,
but if he hits like
money?
58 home runs, it's a totally different dynamic. I mean, Jeter.
Well, what about Cano? Cano's a good example.
All right.
No,
Well,
you know what? But Chris, you know why I disagree with this? I don't think anybody quite viewed Cano as the face of the franchise like Aaron Judge.
Right. I'm with Justin on this.
You're right.
I think that Brian Cashman is going to budge. I think they're gonna. I think he'll.
Well, let me make one comparison, and I know totally different players, but he kind of had a season not quite like this, but he did win the American League batting title, and the Yankees wound up biting the bullet. Bernie Williams, 98, Chris. He won the batting title. He hit 340, had I think 200 plus hits, and the Red Sox had put the money in. They lost Movon, and the Yankees, Steinbrenner jumped in, and he took the bullet, and he gave Bernie Williams the contract. I mean, not quite the season, but he did have, a really, really big year that year. I mean,
right.
That's the one comparison I could say. You know what? Let's say Judge, it's even, like you say, 56 home runs and like 120 runs batted in. I feel like you're almost obligated to sign him. I mean, because I'll even throw it out there. Like John Gonzalez just says it. I mean, what if the Mets try to bid on Aaron Judge? You as a Yankee, you can't lose him to the Mets. I think that would be worse than losing him to the Giants or the Angels.
It would bother me a little bit, but to a certain extent, I don't want them to go 10 years for a guy at 31 because his last 3 or 4 years are going to be horrible, right?
Well, we'll get to the Angels in a few minutes, but I mean, they've given contracts to guys. examples: Vernon Wells, Albert Pujols, most notably long-term
Josh Hamilton.
contracts. Josh Hamilton, Anthony
We've
Rendon
seen
next.
it.
I mean, but it's
What happened with Pujols when
Yeah,
he signed his
Pujols.
deal?
Mo Vaughn's another one. The Angels signed a big contract too.
Pujols, you got what, 2 or 3 good years out of that guy, and then he went straight downhill.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying
I think that's unfair. I would say the first, at least the first 5 years was solid.
Well, he gave him
It
100
wasn't
RBIs. I
solid.
want to
You're
say
talking
It
about
was
solid for
solid.
a
It
guy.
wasn't quite the Albert Pujols you got in St. Louis, and you kind of knew that. But he didn't become a true albatross of the contract till the last couple of years.
Okay,
Like 2018,
you're paying for, here's the thing. You're
Fair.
paying for past performances then. The Yankees don't want to do that. That's what they're looking at. They're not looking at, listen,
But
they
the thing
know
is-
he's going to be what
The
he
thing
is now,
you're paying
right?
for past performance that he did for you. Unlike Albert Pujols, he did it elsewhere.
Right.
Pujols 4 years, 100 runs batted in. All right, so not horrible. He had 3 years of 30 home runs with the Angels. Hit 40 once. Knocked in
But look
90
compared
runs.
to what he was.
Oh, I mean, no
That's what
question.
I'm
He was a
talking about.
machine.
And that's what you're signing with
No, but
Judge.
I'll give you the 10 years that Pujols had with the Angels. 256, 222 home runs, 783 RBIs, 311 OBP, 447 slugging. With the Cardinals counting this season, 326. So it was more like 330,
Yeah.
445 home runs in 11 full years with 1,329 runs batted in. So to your point, yeah,
When does Judge start to tail down, to tail off? Is it going to be
I don't
3
know.
years? Is it going to be
who
4?
knows?
That's the thing, and that's what the Yankees are saying. Listen, we'll give you 30. They offered him $30.5 million every year for 7 years.
Yeah.
That's a pretty
The
good deal.
one
for a
reason
30
I think
for a
the
soon-to-be
Mets may not
31-year-old.
do it, even because even though Steve Cohen has said I'll spend, the Lindor contract is going to be an albatross for the Mets. And I don't know. Do you want another albatross of a
And that
contract?
was one of the worst deals when they first signed him because
Yeah.
they had no competition.
Yeah.
And if they
No.
would have waited a year, he would have been look who he would have been going against. Correa, he would have been going against Story, he would have been going against Kyle Seager, right?
Yeah.
And John Gonzalez says the Angels.
There's no way he
spent
would have got
money
that deal.
and it's
No
gotten
way.
them. Yeah, I agree with you, John. The Angels have spent money and has gotten them nowhere. I mean, Pujols, Rendon, Josh
And
Hamilton,
the Yankees
Vernon
have their
Wells.
backup plan. And right there. That's
And
their
that's-
backup
there
plan.
you go. Well, listen, that
They'll
was my
trade for
segue.
Soto.
Boy, Chris,
They'll
you-
get rid of
you
4
know-
of their
you-
top
You know the
prospects.
questions here on Sportswire. Yeah,
That's their backup plan. That's not a bad
I can't say that's wrong. I can't say that's wrong.
Yeah.
I can see that happening.
but do you think, though, in one sense, and I know we're spending a little time on this, but I think it is notable and deserved to give the Yankees this time, especially with Judge, because, listen, he's having a season right now that's one for the ages. And Carlos, I agree with you. It is terrible for marketing and branding if you don't bring back Judge, if he has 58, 59 home runs, because that's going to be ingrained in people's minds. Think of it almost in a way, and I hate to make this comparison, but when the Rangers let Messier walk, it was they were correct in letting him walk, but the messaging was totally off, and it set that franchise back. Now, I'm not saying that it'll happen.
Who
with
did they
the
bring
Yankees.
in to replace him, though?
I don't even remember.
Right.
I don't even
The
remember.
Yankees are gonna bring somebody in to replace him, right?
Right.
It's not gonna be, oh yeah, we're just gonna get rid of, we're gonna let him walk and then not replace him. They're gonna make a trade for like Soto. They're gonna bring in somebody big because they know.
Well, Soto, correct me if I'm wrong. Soto is not a free agent until 20.
I think there's 3 more years.
Yeah, that's my point. I was about to say.
Yeah.
I think it's
They would have to trade for him.
2025, maybe. I think 24, 2024, and
24,
arbitration
25.
eligible.
I'm thinking
Right.
25.
Right. That's what I thought. So yeah, I mean, the Yankees. Whatever. John Gonzalez says, Chris, remember, the Martian is still lurking. His bat has been heating up in Tampa. He is only 20.
Hey, but he's a
He's
prospect.
still 2
though.
years away.
You can't. As
That guy's 2 years away.
great of a prospect as Jason Dominguez is, you can't count on a prospect until you see him actually face major league
Right.
pitching.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking about him.
And Carlos
Soto's got 2
says
more years.
the Yankees can sell crap in a jersey and people will pay for it. Yeah, probably. I mean, but they've built up And listen, they've built that capital up. It's going to be now 30 consecutive winning seasons, and it's a franchise. Even though they
It's
haven't
not
been.
Judge. It'll be someone else.
No, listen, they're the Yankees. The Yankees at this point, they're their own entity. I mean, so in one sense, you ain't wrong. So, I mean, I don't know what else.
I'll leave it at this. I'll be shocked if they go 10 years for him, and I'll be shocked if someone doesn't go 10 years for him. Like San Fran is a great example. San Fran has not much money next year going on to their contracts.
Wow, it's coming off the books.
Yeah, so they could make a big splash like that, and they need a bat. I mean, they need somebody there.
Well,
right?
I can't believe I'm saying it, even though John Gonzalez mentioned. I mean, Artie Moreno has endless pockets. I mean, I still think he could be a competitor.
No way, because he's got to sign Ohtani in another year, and that's not.
Yeah.
We rattled off
How
all
much
the
is he gonna
contracts
ask
that
for?
he signed, though. Rendon and Pujols and Hamilton.
How much is Ohtani going to ask for?
60.
But he's
Right.
not having the greatest of
60.
seasons though this year, though.
I don't know if someone's going to pay him 60, but he's going to ask for a lot.
I'm telling you right now, Otani's going to sign, even though I think Shohei is 27, I want to say. So he'll be 28.
You're correct. He turns 28 July 5th.
Okay, so he'll be 29 because he's got one more year.
Right.
He's under team control next year.
13 home runs, 37 RBIs,
He'll be 29 when he's
batting
free.
average, 26 doubles, 8 triples last year.
I'm telling you right now, I'm booking it down right now. Ohtani gets 5 for 300.
Well, 5 and 4, 3.28 ERA. Yeah, maybe. You know what? He might. It's a possibility. John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, "I don't agree. Dominguez is not 4 years away."
2 years.
Carlos says Giants need a homer and Judge is available. Well, he's a local guy. I mean,
Yeah.
Yep.
He is.
the Giants do need
That's a
somebody
big factor.
to help that franchise. And Carlos says the Yankees will add Soto. Brother in Spanish Harlem will go nuts. Well, you Spanish Harlem, yes. I'm trying to think of brother. What's the brother comment? I don't know the brother influence, but Spanish. Oh, maybe he meant brother Spanish Harlem will go nuts. Yeah, I could see Spanish Harlem and Washington Heights, and if you consider Sunset Park still, though Sunset Park is not the Sunset Park it used to be. Or you want to consider Elmhurst and Corona, I'll throw it in there too. Okay, fine, but okay. I mean, yeah, I guess, but that's for the Yankees to decide. So going over to the Mets here, obviously the Mets certainly have had their own. I guess they've done okay here, and now I see what he's saying. Soho's brother will be in the deal. Okay, because I was kind of reading that wrong. If you would have said his brother from the beginning. Anybody agree with that? Before I move on? Because John Gonzalez actually is saying he wants to move on. So I have a comment from him. He says here, stop with the Soto talk. He's not coming to the Bronx. All right, so you know what, John? I'm going to stop with the Soto talk because I want to talk about the New York Mets because I do want to talk about them because the Mets did win tonight. And certainly
Move on.
they have also been the team. Well, I spent a lot of time on the Yankees.
Yes,
I
we
heard the Pinstripe Chronicles last week say Sportswire Radio is very Mets heavy. I know you were on there, Chris. In the last 2 weeks, I've tried my best to work in the Yankees. So people can't say that we're not just talking about the Mets here on Sportswire. Rob Maraska is not with us this week because he's under the weather. He'll be back next week, so I wanted to give the time to the Yankees because they are the hottest team in baseball, in professional sports. So I wanted to spend at least 15 or 20 minutes on the Mets before I move on and get an NBA thought before we get out of here. So let me go into the Mets here because obviously the Met fan, the life of a Met fan for Justin and the Brute Force Brad Weiss. I mean, I have heard Met emotions throughout this week go up and down and up. And yet they're still in first place. They're 5.5 games ahead, but you would never know it. So I'm going to take the temperature right now from some New York Mets fans. And let me go to Justin first, and I'll go over to Brad. I mean, Justin, you said here before we went on the air, you said tonight, before first pitch, Braves and Mets. Obviously, Braves had lost. Mets were playing the Marlins. You felt that this was a must-win here for the Mets, with the Braves losing here 1-0, and Mets made you look good. So how you feeling right now about the New York Mets?
Overall, I'm still feeling good about this team.
Okay.
Why? Because they're 9-6 in the month of June, and while you're going to lose ground when a team wins 14 in a row, The Mets are still playing good baseball, and
Yeah.
as crazy as it seems, the Mets are 20 games over 500. They're 43-23, best record in the National League. And yet the Yankees have been so good. The Mets are 6 games back for best record of baseball. That's just like a microcosm of what New York baseball has been this year. But despite the lead shrinking down to now, well, to 4.5 games, and now to 4 games actually, and then over the last 2 days, the Mets made it 5.5 with the win, and then the Braves lost today with the Met victory. I still feel very good about this team because the team is not playing bad baseball. The team is playing good baseball. Now, am I concerned that Tyler McGill is back out again? He's been shut down for the next 4 weeks because of right shoulder soreness.
And he just came back too. Just came back.
Just in a second start back. That's a real bummer. We're looking at a possibility of Max Scherzer making a rehab start Tuesday. They haven't determined that where it will be just yet, but and Jacob deGrom continues to throw bullpens, so he's working his way back too. I don't know how you don't feel good about this Mets ball club because you know what, they're so level-headed. This team has not lost more than 2 games in a row all season.
What have they lost? 2 series the entire season, right? So 2 series in a couple of splits?
Padres and Mariners, I believe. Yes, if I'm not mistaken, those
2 series and a bunch of splits.
I know there was a split against
the Braves and the Dodgers, right?
The Dodgers. Those are the 2 4-game splits. Obviously, this weekend's a 4-game series as well because it wraps around into Monday. Carlos, that can't happen. The Mets need starters at this point. David Peterson has to start games for the
I love Carlos. He's got some interesting appearance. Carlos is an interesting guy, I have to say.
I'm glad he brings David Peterson up because David Peterson had a really bad outing on Wednesday night. Yep. And David Peterson becomes all the more important behind Taijuan Walker, Carlos Carrasco, and Chris Bassett. Right now they need a 4 and 5, and it's likely going to be David Peterson and Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams has been fine for the most part. David Peterson has had some good starts. I wouldn't bring up Budo. He's in Double-A right now. Let's at least see him face Triple-A hitters first before we call him up to the big league. Stop trying to bring guys up from Double-A. Let's get them through Triple-A first. Let's get them good 40 innings there. But I think they're going to look towards a.
I don't know how this popped up, but we have somebody from Kenya watching us, so I don't know
What's up,
how
Leonard?
you got in there. But
up,
do we know? I know we're heard in England for sure, and in Denmark, in some places like that. But I don't know if it's like a spam comment or it's just somebody really listening to us from Kenya. So,
anything the more the better, right?
I'll take it.
Nice.
I'll take it. Right.
But to finish my thought on the Mets, they're obviously going to. I think they're going to dip their toes into the starting pitching market, probably for a back end type piece.
Yep, I can see that.
Because once you have Scherzer back, and I fully expect that once Scherzer's back, that he'll be fine for the rest of the year. Obviously, the concern's still DeGrom. When he comes back, you hope he stays. But
I've heard so many opinions on DeGrom over the past week. I'm like dizzy from them. I'm literally dizzy from them.
It's hard to trust it because it's hard. It's like you don't know that he's there until he actually is. He hasn't pitched since July 7th of last year, so it's really tough to. It's really tough to trust him right now, but once he is back, you have two of the best pitchers in the game, and this rotation becomes all the more scarier.
And
that's not even talking about the fact that the Mets have the best offense in baseball right now. The Mets have scored the most.
I gotta give you guys some credit because at the start of the season, I really wasn't that keen on the lineup, and
I think we all had our concerns about the lineup. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not kid ourselves. I think we all had our concerns about the lineup, but this team has scored 337 runs. 10 more than the Yankees.
About 5 runs a game, right? About 5
two-
runs a game they're scoring.
The two best offenses in baseball are in New York right now. And the Mets have been a consistent offense all season long. So, I don't know how you're not happy with this team right now. I mean,
No,
it's
definitely
great.
not a lot to like and a lot to love here about this team here. And Carlos says, let's see Trevor, Peterson, and all those guys. So the Brute Force, I mean, work me in here into what you think, obviously, about this Met team right now. Obviously, Braves go on a run that it felt like they were never going to lose. Winners of 14 games before this afternoon against the Cubs. They gain all that ground on us. 6.5 games before we gain a game and a half back. I mean, how do you feel about the team? The team has played, like Justin said, to his credit, they've played well. I mean, the Mets really haven't done anything wrong. They just ran into teams that they were supposed to go 5-5. We said 5-5 was okay. 2 or 3 from the Brewers. Win tonight against the Marlins, like Justin pointed out, 8-6. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Just the Braves played the Pirates, they played the Reds, they played the Nationals. It was almost like in boxing, for our boxing fans as a reference, they played all like boxcar Iras from The Simpsons. And Homer was fighting, and he was fighting.
Next week, 4 with the Giants.
I heard that.
So
I mean, before I get to Carlos's comical comment in here, I mean, of course, I mean, how do you feel about the Mets right now and where they are right at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say this. Justin Gianelli said he feels good about the Mets. I feel great about the Mets. I'm going to take a step higher. All right? I feel great about the New York Mets right now. Okay? And the reason why is for a lot of the points you guys already brought up. I mean, who do we have starting games in the outfield the last couple games? His name is Nick Plummer, okay? I don't think half the league knows who the hell Nick Plummer is. Yet, we're still finding ways to win series and win games. We don't have the 2 best pitchers, arguably in baseball, pitching in our rotation, and we're still getting good outings from Carlos Carrasco once again tonight.
Carrasco's been a godsend this season.
Unbelievable. I mean, he's been great. I think Taijuan Walker's been pitching better.
Much better. Absolutely.
You know, and obviously, listen, I was at the game on Tuesday night where Chris Bassett threw 8 innings, no runs, and he looked fantastic. So that's the Bassett we need. And listen, Peterson, he's been up and down, but, you know, listen, you're asking a guy who wasn't even supposed to be in the rotation to give you innings. He's doing his best. And trust me, as a player, I know how hard it is to go from, all right, my role's in the bullpen, my role's here, and now I'm a starter, and now I'm going to go back to AAA, and now I'm back. Like, it's not easy. And he's still finding a way to be effective. So you got to give him a lot of credit. And the fact that the Mets, right, and let's say this, because let's celebrate on this day, all right? On this day, Friday, June 17th, the New York Mets, we don't say this often. Like Justin said, the New York Mets are 20 games over 500. That right there, we do not get to say a lot about.
Didn't we talk about that on Twitter in our group? The last time the Mets were 20 games over 500 in June, you had to go back, way back in the time machine. Think about it, right?
88.
88 or, yeah.
I mean, the Yankees, right? They're always 20 games over 500, right?
Yeah, for us, this is foreign territory for us. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's great. I mean, you can't say enough about the managing that Buck Showalter has done as well. Absolutely. Just pressing the right buttons over and over again. Even the other day, I was very upset when he brought in Chasen Shreve into that game against Milwaukee. I'm like, here we go, game over. And Shreve didn't pitch well, but he did come in a second inning and get it done. And then Buck kept us in the game, pushed the right buttons, and the Mets ended up coming back and winning the game. So this is a resilient group. This is a group that, again, doesn't even have its best players, right, and their best pitchers, I should say, right, and is starting Nick Plummer in the outfield and still finding ways, right, to win games. And also you got to give credit to guys like Luis Guillorme, all of a sudden has become an everyday player, basically, and he's been unbelievable in his role. Obviously the McNeils of the world. Lindor hasn't even played that well recently, but still.
Yeah, Lindor, I feel like, and he's been a big topic on talk radio. Now, I know Gary Cohn was talking during the game about basically how well Lindor has played in terms of interleague play, and he's got, 48 RBIs, right? And he's right there.
That right there was going to go right into my point, though, because he hasn't even played that well, right? He did hit a home run tonight, but he hasn't played that well. He still has those RBIs. And by the way, what did we religiously talk about all of last year? The Mets stinks with runners in scoring position. And this year,
night and day. I mean, I can't remember a Mets team that hit this well with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
Maybe 2015, maybe.
I mean, that's something that we talked about.
I wouldn't even think that team was good with runners in scoring position because
really.
I think 2006, I would say, was the last team that was like really good with runners in scoring. But that team was just clutch.
And not only that, Tommy, you got your worst hitter that we all complained about. You know, we talked about Ernest Dove, right? About being the prospect hugger. And a guy like Tomas Nido, who doesn't hit that much, but actually does hit when it matters. His average with runners in scoring position is like 370 this year. I mean, he's still finding ways to hit when it matters. So this team from 1 to 9, and you can't give enough credit to guys like Mark Canha as well.
Canha's been a nice move. I think Justin, credit to Justin, because I remember when we spoke about this live in December, I think, right, was when the Mets signed him, and you said, you know, right before the lockout, Justin liked the move. You were like, no, this is a good move, good player. I mean, so you were
you know what? I looked at his career numbers, and you really ignore the year he had last year, and he's let's be honest, he's not coming off the greatest of years yet last year, but I'll tell you what Mark Canha is. He is, I would say, the most boring, underrated type signing of the offseason because he's not a flashy player, yet he just gets the job done. He's just solid. He plays a good left field every day. You know, making that running catch with the ball falling to save a couple of runs tonight. You know, whether it's getting big hits. Last night, he steps into the leadoff spot when Buck makes a slight lineup tweak, puts Nimmo in the 2-hole, and has Canha lead off. What does he do? He's on base 4 times last night.
I like Canha. He's a clutch guy.
Another thing to add to that.
He's not a flashy player, but he just gets the job done.
Right. Another thing to add to that is the one thing that we lament a guy like Brandon Nimmo and Mark Canha is that they work counts. They make pitchers work. Like they're never one time are they an easy at bat when they step in there. They make the pitcher work. And another thing we don't talk about is how the Mets get the starters out of the games all the time because they're constantly making them work. And that another guy who deserves credit for that is Eric Chavez, the batting coach.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's been a fantastic.
Listen, he was in the Yankees staff there, a former OFA.
Yeah, I mean he's been fantastic. I mean, the way
Eric Chavez is a player I think led the American League in walks one year, if I recall correctly. He had a very good eye.
Very good eye at the plate. Very good hitter. And you know, and you Brad brings up the amount of pitches that Nimmo and Canha see. Steve Gelbs asked him about it in the post game. First 2 at bats, a walk and a strikeout, but he saw 15 pitches. First pitch, 3rd at bat, home run. I rest my case. I mean, but if you see 15 pitches over 2 at bats, you have seen everything that pitcher has.
Absolutely.
No doubt he's emptied the arsenal.
Yep.
No question about that here. And also want to bring up a stat here. Pete Alonso becomes the 2nd fastest person in MLB history to reach 125 career home runs. And it's so interesting.
I think of Ryan Howard only faster.
Well, Ryan Howard hit like 50 home runs or close to 50 home runs, like 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating because Chris over with the Yankees, right? 125 home runs. They've got like countless guys, right? But already in Mets history, Pete Alonso is already moving up the record books. It's so fascinating to me because, like I said, the Yankees, 125 home runs in their history is probably like, 150th. But in Mets history, I think it's
Now, Tom, to that point, I mean, Justin, let's just put this right now. I mean, Pete Alonso right now has 63 RBIs.
RBI a game.
How many RBIs is this man going to finish with the pace that he's going? I mean, not only is he hitting home runs, not only is he driving runs in, but he's also hitting for average. He's hitting 285. I mean, he's been, you know, we chanted MVP on Tuesday, but it's legitimate. Like this guy has been
I think right now,
MVP for the Mets.
I think right now you got to give it to him. I mean, the Mets are 43 and 23.
Think about it. He is 1 ahead of Jose Ramirez for the major league lead. Jose Ramirez is 62 RBIs. But if you're talking about the the National League, Paul Goldschmidt is next with 56, CJ Cron 49.
Wow.
And then Lindor now is 49.
Yeah, Lindor, and I know I definitely want to move on here because obviously I want to work the NBA finals in here before we get to closing thoughts. But Lindor is so fascinating to me because, again, he's got the 49 RBIs, but he's been so streaky this season. He starts the season cold, gets hot for a couple weeks, slows down, gets hot toward the end of May. Going into today, didn't have the greatest of months, and you almost don't know what to make of Lindor. I mean,
I wonder if the finger injury just slowed his bat down, because it all kind of coincides with this most recent slump. I know he's been hot and cold all year, but you know what? The only reason why I'm going to lay off of Lindor is because he has produced, and he is capable of clearly carrying this offense with the types of RBIs. He had that 10-game RBI streak. He's
he's gonna knock in. Listen, he's gonna probably have his first season of 100+ RBIs. He's on a pace for maybe even more than that. But I mean, you watch him, and he's had at bats where he strikes out, he gets caught looking, and it's kind of, you don't know what to make of him. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, of course, he hasn't, maybe looked great, but the one thing that he has been doing, like we talked about, is driving runs in, but also getting on base in general. Like, he's on base.
Yeah, the OBP is not bad. I think it's like 80 points above his batting average. I mean, so he's getting on base.
Yeah, he's getting on base.
The batting average is low for me, though. I got to be honest. The batting average.
Yeah, no, it's not great. It's 243 at the moment. It's not great. But, listen, you see his impact. Obviously, tonight he made some great plays in the field. Yeah. And also I think we don't talk enough about his leadership. I know that he's been a better leader in this clubhouse this year. And, again, I'm not going to go back to this because I don't want to talk about this tonight. But you look at one guy in Lindor, how he leads the Mets, and then you look at Bryce Harper with the Phillies, and you say, who's a better leader of a clubhouse? And I think it's Francisco Lindor. I think he's done a much better job. And even though Harper's performing better, I think Lindor is having more of an impact on the overall team rather than Harper as an individual.
I don't know. I mean, that's going to be forever your thing, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, because I ain't touching that one.
I understand that there's a lot of people that disagree, but I'm going to listen. That's part of the show. I come out with a hot take.
Let me ask you guys. You guys,
jump in, Chris.
We talked about the Yankees. What are they going to add? What do you think the Mets are going to add coming up to the trade deadline?
You got to go bullpen arm first of all. First and foremost, it's a bullpen arm, and one of the things that I think you can compliment the way Billy Epler attacked this offseason. Mets don't have a lot of weaknesses. They really don't. Would I be mad if they went for another starter just because of the unknown of the returns of DeGrom and Scherzer? I think that's something that they could look at as well. In terms of bat, I don't know. They might feel content with this lineup, and because this is a lineup that puts the ball in play a lot. And I think that always plays well late in the year. Is a lineup that doesn't strike out all that much. So I think most of their adding is going to come in the pitching department. I think bullpen will be their number one priority. And if they have any reservations or concerns about DeGrom and Scherzer, maybe a potential arm.
Well, Scherzer, I think, is a lot closer to coming back than DeGrom.
Yeah, like I said, he's going to pitch a rehab game. It's undetermined what level he'll pitch at. But he even said, once I can throw 70 to 75 pitches in a big league game, or once I can throw up to 75 pitches, maybe even 80, I want to be in a big league game. So it could be we're talking about Max Scherzer pitching next Sunday for the Mets.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Scherzer is coming back a lot sooner than DeGrom. DeGrom, I just don't know. I mean, so that's the way I feel about it. DeGrom, again, I really don't know.
I have a feeling. My prediction will be that, and he's going to be one that's going to need 3, 4, 5 rehab starts, which is fair. He hasn't pitched in a year, but I actually think that we're going to get that ball rolling before July 1st.
Well, that would mean that we would see him back maybe sometime after the All-Star break. That is something we've definitely
Possibly.
heard about here. And obviously, quick look at the standings right now in the National League East, where the Mets are a part of. Mets are 5.5 games ahead of the Braves. Phillies are now 8 games back. Phillies have won 14 of their last 16 games. You've got the Marlins at 28 and 34 after their loss. Nationals are pretty much out of it. Cardinals and Brewers separated by a game. Then you've got the Pirates, Cubs, and Reds who are pretty much dead in the water. NL West, you've got the Dodgers and Padres tied. Giants 3.5 back. Diamondbacks and Rockies have definitely come back to earth. American League, Yankees pretty much 11 games ahead of the Blue Jays, 13 now over Tampa. Boston's also right there. That's the wild card more into play there. Twins they're still up on the Guardians. They're 2 games ahead of them, although the Guardians have a bunch of games they have to make up. White Sox still don't know what to make of them. They're 5.5 back. Tigers and Royals pretty much dead in the water. Astros are up 9 games over the Rangers. Angels are 10.5 back. Mariners 12 back. So the American League wild card
I
certainly.
got to hand it to Boston. What a turnaround it's been
Yeah.
after a disastrous month of April. And here we were talking about, hey, maybe let's get JD Martinez. They're not selling anymore. That's not
No way.
Yeah,
No
no,
way.
that's out the
selling
window.
anybody.
And you know what? I could even go out on a limb saying Boston's going to nab one of those wild card spots.
Well, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, they're in that last spot because you got the 3 teams
Right
in the
now,
American Leagues who are in those wild cards, right?
Right now, it's a dead heat with Cleveland. Almost called them the Indians,
But Cleveland's
you know,
got to make up like what 6 games, I think.
I know they've got a ton of games, so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
So it's a little early, but
Today for the Guardians is game 60,
Yep.
as opposed to the Red Sox. They've played 65.
and I think the White Sox. We haven't heard the end of the White Sox. I still think they got to run in them.
Well, I think what helps
Do you
them
think they make
also.
a managerial change?
That's what I've been thinking that.
This runs twofold though. It seems like the fan base wants them to fire La Russa. It seems like people around baseball think they should fire La Russa. But here's Jerry Reinsdorf, somebody who's very close to Tony La Russa, saying one of the biggest mistakes of my life was firing Tony
I heard
40 years ago. So I don't know, but I'm just throwing it out there because I feel like it might be something that shakes this team
Well, I'll
up.
tell you what, we
Well,
saw it with the
that's all I want.
Phillies, right? Phillies get rid of Girardi, and they're red hot,
And
right?
the White Sox have
13-50.
arguably as much, if not better, talent.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with the division, they're definitely still alive for that as well. So
Oh, yeah.
those are some definite things that we'll see. A lot more baseball talk. We'll have Rob Maraska with us next week. He'll be back in his regular slot. So we'll get into a lot of baseball here. But before we get to closing thoughts here, I wanted to put a bow on the NBA season official, though we had some entertaining NBA talk. Justin has reminded us about the fact that the Golden State Warriors have won their 4th championship in 8 years. And I'm going to go to Justin first before I get to Brad, before we move on here tonight. I mean, Justin, certainly an interesting Game 6. Certainly Steph Curry definitely shut up those critics. It was definitely, I think, his championship. This was his. This was, when you think about, you look at his career, I think it's going to be this finals run, especially for me, Games 4 and last night. That's going to kind of put the bow on maybe his career even overall.
2 words for you. They're back. Back like they never left. I mean, after what seemed like the end of an era when Durant tears his Achilles heading into his free agency, Klay Thompson with the ACL injury, and they lose to the Raptors, and then as he's rehabbing, he tears his Achilles, so he misses basically 2 years of basketball, 2.5 years. He doesn't even come back till like after New Year this year, and for a team to win, I think it was 15 games just a couple of years ago. Yep. They get one of the top overall picks, and that pick didn't really have much of an impact this year because of injury. James Wiseman, and then they go and they missed the playoffs because they lost to the bubble last year. They lost the play-in, and then to come back this year, be the 3 seed, and arguably could have been the 1 or the 2 if Steph doesn't get hurt. And when they really went on a good month stretch where they weren't playing good basketball, But I mean, the Golden State Warriors just showed you, why they're still a dynasty. They've won 4 championships in 8 years. They've been to 6. They've been to 6 finals if you include their losses to Cleveland and Toronto. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you think about it, Klay Thompson's played in 6 straight NBA finals.
Yeah,
So
because he
I mean,
missed
the
a couple
Golden
years.
State
Yep.
Warriors, and you can't say enough about Steve Kerr. You really can't, because he has kept everything together throughout all of this. And I know the NBA is a players' league, but I mean, all the credit has to go to Steve Kerr.
We got 9 championships now. Think about that.
I mean,
9
that man's just a walking legend, and
And he was a good announcer too for a few years, if you remember. He did the TNT
absolutely,
games. Yep.
absolutely. Steve Kerr is good at everything he does, and he has turned into one of the great NBA coaches, certainly of this generation.
I
But
think he is. I think he certainly is. I
he
mean,
is starting to cement himself as one of the great coaches of all time, and
no question, no question.
it is unbelievable. And guess what? They're not going anywhere. They're going to be here again next year. I would not be surprised if they're not at least in the finals next year. So,
Well,
I mean, hats off to the Warriors. Hats off to Steph Curry for finally getting that first finals MVP. I mean, what he did in Game 6. I mean, I'm shaking off that 0 for 9 from 3 in Game 5. You know what?
I think the first time in 233 games he hit a 3-point shot. That was an
Yep.
amazing stat.
That was an incredible streak. But you know what? I'm happy Boston lost.
Well, that segues me to the brute force Brad Weiss, because while I heard all that stuff about Steph Curry, but you know what, the brute force, when I think about the Golden State Warriors and I think about how they won this championship, I'm actually going to think about a couple of different players. I'm going to think about Andrew Wiggins, and I'm going to think about guys like Jordan Poole, because those were the guys for me when I think about it. Yes, Steph played out of his mind in some of these games, but I looked at Wiggins, and he was making shot after shot, especially last night, and I think those are the guys, you know this better than anybody, Brad, because you were a very good player. You played in those spots. You know you can relate to that, and that's what I'm going to think about this Warriors team. It was the depth. Their bench, to me, was better than Boston's. And give me
Role
your
players
thoughts.
that earned their title.
Absolutely. Rufus, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, well, you guys said it. I mean, and certainly Justin said it, that the Warriors are back. But in my opinion, with the 2 years, they struggled because of injuries. But I wasn't one of those guys that didn't think that they could potentially come back and do this. I thought that this was potentially on the horizon. Again, they could come back and be a championship caliber team. And they did it very quickly. That's the one thing that I think we're all surprised by. But ultimately, Steph Curry, obviously, like we said, this was his championship. He led the troops. This is the one that is big for him because, everyone talks about how the 2 previous ones, he had Kevin Durant with him. The first one, they were still young, and they got, past a really bad Cavaliers team that year. And then, this one is really because it was all about Steph Curry's leadership and Steph Curry stepping up, because everyone talked about how he came up small in these situations in the past, where he was the guy and everyone was looking at him to see what he would do. And he said it himself. He said, "What are you going to say now? Because there's nothing else we could say."
Well, look at him after the game, him crying on the court there on the corner.
Yeah, because you could tell that this was like a meaning. I think this for him was the most meaningful championship they had.
I think.
Just because of everything they had to come through with the Thompson injury, the Curry injury, the doom days, like you guys said, the 50-loss season, and then come back and they had to do it and they had to develop players. And like I told you guys, a guy like Jordan Poole, I mean, how many years as a Knicks fan do I talk about guys who we draft that we can't develop? And the Warriors do the total opposite.
He was the guy we spoke a lot about when we did the NBA throughout the playoffs for Golden State. He was the guy I feel like came out of my mouth like 4 or 5.
A lot of big moments.
Yep.
Yeah, and listen, this is a guy who was drafted at the end of the first round. And the Warriors have done that multiple years and have gotten guys, right, that produce. I mean, look at a guy like Gary Payton who got cut multiple times. And they come back and they sign him, and he becomes a defensive stopper for them, a big impact guy. They just find a way. And, you guys give them so much credit. And we talked about the depressing New York Knicks earlier and how we were only one pick away from getting Stephen Curry. Well, we were also in the running to get Steve Kerr as coach years ago.
I remember that. Yep, I remember
and
that.
we lost that battle as well. And as you guys eloquently said, Steve Kerr is one of the best coaches of all time now. He's obviously was a great player. He's a champion. He's a 9-time champion combined with his playing career and coaching career now. And he's a fantastic coach. I mean, a guy who you see coaching, and he's never too high or too low. He's always right there. He's never going to go too crazy or too high or too low, like I said. And he's the ultimate leader of a team. The guys listen to him. They move the ball for him. They're not a selfish team. And the way that they play basketball is the way that everyone wants to play basketball, to be quite honest with you. And obviously it helps to have a shooter like Stephen Curry who can shoot from literally anywhere, Klay Thompson, amongst the rest of the crew. So the Warriors are back for sure. I wouldn't be surprised, Tom, if they were in the finals again next season as well. I think that they're that good, and they're going to continue to get better. And the last point I'll make is what you just said at the very end of your statement, Tom, is Andrew Wiggins. Look at a guy like that who was drafted as the top pick and went to Minnesota. And he goes to Minnesota, right, where nothing, just like the Knicks, nothing really develops, nothing happens. And then he gets to go to Golden State, and look what happens. Right? He still is that great player, but he gets mentored by the Draymond Greens, by the Klay Thompsons, by the Stephen Currys. And he takes his talent, he fits his role, just like Harrison Barnes did for them years ago.
Yep.
He filled the role, and he maximized his role. And the biggest part was not just his offense. It was his defense. The way that he locked up Jason Tatum in multiple times in this series was definitely huge for the Warriors. But quickly to get to the Celtics side of things, you can't be upset if you're a Celtics fan. I know.
No way.
I know that, you've won 17 championships. Everybody, the guy with the damn tattoo on his arm that said Celtics champions, that guy should be ashamed of himself.
I'll tell you who should be upset, though, real quick. The fake Klay Thompson, because I did want to bring that up. Listen, seriously, what's wrong with you? This guy in here, he could be Klay Thompson, and you ban him for life for all that money he spent to go to the game. Listen, this is the kind of guy you want. Fake Klay Thompson. How could you ban him? That's who should be angry right now. Fake Klay Thompson.
That's funny. That's definitely funny. But what I will say is this on the Celtics side, because listen, I know that my assistant coach Joe LeRae, Matt Hurd, I could go down the list.
I believe is a Celtics fan too.
Yeah, I could keep going down the list. There's plenty of them. They're all disappointed.
Mike
but
McSloy, ain't he a Celtics fan too?
I'm not sure.
I feel like I heard that somewhere.
But either way, the Celtics fans are disappointed, but they shouldn't be. The Celtics
no way.
were a team that was under 500 early in the season. Ime Udoka was one of the best coaches in the league for getting this team to where they got. They went through the best teams in the East. Series after series. Brooklyn,
went
Milwaukee,
on the road against Miami, defeating the champion Bucks.
They got through all those teams, and then the Warriors. Listen, the Warriors were the better team, but the Celtics just need to mature. Jason Tatum needed this experience. He had 100 turnovers in this postseason, which is an awful lot. And they turned the ball over so much that they couldn't even compete with the Warriors because they were just giving them the ball. So the Celtics, listen, they were the top defensive team. They did a lot right. Their young talent is there. They're going to be good for many, many years. They're going to have to add pieces, especially off the bench, to help them win. But they also need guys like Tatum and Brown to mature. And this learning experience is going to be worlds for them because they're going to take what they learned from this experience, bring it to years to come, and the Celtics are going to be one of the best teams in the East for not just next season, but many seasons to come. And as much as that hates, because I hate Boston and I don't like the Celtics, but I have to be truthful. They're going to be one of the best teams in the East for many years to come.
Absolutely, no question about that. A great second half for them, a great coach, a team I think is going to be here for a while. And Golden State, obviously, what a comeback story, turning it around. Obviously, the 2 years prior, not even officially making the postseason. And Steve Kerr, 6 full seasons, 6 trips to an NBA Finals, 429 and 200 as coach. What a season for Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins. Jordan Poole came on, just a great team. Listen, Otto Porter Jr., another guy you got to throw in there. He was big for them. Obviously, Draymond Green, can never forget about him. Obviously, Andre Iguodala, if this is the end, a great way to cap his career. I mean, certainly a lot to be proud of for both teams. It was a great NBA season. We'll definitely be covering it here with the offseason throughout on Sportswire Radio. So excited about that here. And
we got, I'll just say this quick before you keep going, Tom.
Sure.
We got the draft next Thursday, and we'll see how the Knicks screw up this one. So
we'll recap it. Listen, we'll definitely
we'll talk about that next week.
Hey guys, is Curry a top 10 player now, all time?
Oh God, stop it!
Oh, this conversation's been big right now.
Four titles.
Oh man, I think he's right there. I wouldn't put him
there.
He's right there. I would have to go through the list myself. Maybe I'll have a list next week, but it's very close.
Well, I mean, who are you putting in there? Kareem, Magic, Wilt, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. You putting in there? Are you putting in Shaq? Are you putting Hakeem Olajuwon? One of those guys? Are you putting in Tim Duncan?
I heard. Did you say Bill Russell? Because I think he should be.
I said Will Chamberlain. I can throw Bill Russell.
Will Russell. I mean, it's a tough, conversation. But Chris, he's definitely in the conversation. We're talking about a 4-time champion, a league MVP 2 times.
He revolutionized the game with 3-point shooting. That might.
Yeah, he changed the game, and now he's got a Finals MVP. I mean, like he said, what else? What else do you want? Like, he's done basically everything, and not like that. Like we said, he's not done. He might win more.
Right. What if next year he wins his 5th title?
You know what?
I mean, listen, the biggest story now is LeBron James has 4 titles. He might eclipse LeBron James. And we might have to start talking about whether this was LeBron's era right now or is it Steph Curry's, because that's becoming a tough one. You know, Steph Curry's really
LeBron. Now Steph is 4-2 in finals. LeBron is what, 4-5 or 4-6?
4-6.
4-6.
Who finishes with more titles?
I think Steph Curry does. I really do.
I mean, if LeBron's going to be on the Lakers again next year, obviously. Lakers are nowhere close to a title. They're a disaster right now.
And how many more years does he have left when you think about it?
He's trying to hold on till his son gets drafted.
2 or 3 left.
I mean, Steph Curry's career numbers, 20,000 career points already, 3,100 free threes, 90% from the field, from the free throw line.
Hey, Justin, how does Kevin Durant feel right now?
I heard all that this morning on the radio.
I don't think he cares. I really don't. I don't know.
It's tough not to care, though. As a team you were just on, you left them, and look at the situation you're in now.
Yeah.
He left Steve Kerr to pick his own coach and his own team, and so far the success certainly speaks for itself. I mean, listen, a lot to go on there. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. Always is with the NBA, and certainly the draft we'll talk about next week. Maybe we'll get a top 10 list thought or two. We're supposed to be joined, I believe, by Jacob Davatashvili, basketball player, now upcoming. Interesting story. He had 3 years where he didn't play any organized college basketball, and now is starting out over at Finlandia University out there in Michigan. So we'll certainly maybe get his thoughts on it. It's an interesting story, kind of like our friend Joe Gotra, the Brute Force, a little bit. So maybe we'll get his thoughts on that. So maybe we'll work in a top 10 thought, a draft, off season. So a lot to get into here. We were on Sportswire Radio here tonight. Obviously, a very entertaining show here, even though we were a little bit short, man, but always enjoyed it here. So I want to get to closing thoughts here. Let me get to Justin first. Justin, I'm going to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, baseball banter related, anything else on your mind. And I can't thank you enough. Also, happy birthday. And what'd you do for your birthday as a bonus? And floor is yours, my friend.
Well, I spent the day at the beach because it was a nice day out too.
Yes, it was a very beautiful day.
Gorgeous day. And then I went out for hibachi for dinner later on. So it was a pretty relaxing day. Feels weird turning 30 because I enjoyed the 20s, but
you know it's funny. My friend Steve Solanke, who's called in the past, interesting guy. He actually is turning 30 in, I think, right around the end of August. He had the same thought you just said because he's 29 going on 30. It's a
little depressing, but what are you gonna do?
I hear you.
But so baseball banter probably going to be possibly tomorrow night recorded.
Okay.
I'll be at the Met game tomorrow afternoon
Okay.
at Citi Field. One thing we didn't touch on with the Mets was the whole Eduardo Escobar mystery.
Yes, I think we got a comment in there from Carlos Arturo Chavez at one point. We think he gave us.
Maybe I missed it, but this was from Pat Ragazzo of SI from the post game. Eduardo Escobar said he was dealing with a headache and dizziness yesterday, but is feeling better and is 700% sure he'll be in the lineup tomorrow. So apparently he had to leave and go to the hospisptal last night, and that was the cause for all of that. He said he was dealing with vision issues as well. So good to know that things are not as serious as the concerns we had yesterday. It was good to see him back in the dugout tonight. But so follow me on Twitter at JGNLE12 and at BBallBanterSM. And again, likely to get another show out tomorrow night at some point, and recap some of the things that happened in baseball this week.
Absolutely looking forward to all of that. Also want to shout out Ron Laird, because Ron Laird has been listening. He likes some of our posts. Also my post upcoming, which I'll get to later on. So great stuff, Justin. Looking forward to the next Baseball Banter show, and we'll play it out whenever we get it. So Chris, want to give you the floor. Want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to share? Liftoff Jets related, talking Rivals. Also, happy Father's Day. Hope you enjoy it, as I said at the very beginning. So I turn it over to you. Anything you want to plug, share? I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Tom, for everything. Guys, another great show. Coming up on Talking Rivals on Monday, we're supposed to be having a guest. He's on Twitter. His handle is Ballpark Buzz, and does a lot of good write-ups. The big Red Sox fan, so
Okay.
he's got a pretty good following. So I'm kind of curious to talk to him, see how his feelings are about the Red Sox and the rest of the league. So that should be good. And Talking Rivals, I don't know if you guys watched it. The flight show that the Jets put out, good behind-the-scenes look at the Jets. They just released it. They released their first 5 episodes. Really awesome. Guys, definitely check it out. We're going to be talking about that a little bit on the Liftoff show, and just continue our preview of, the position, each position for the Jets. Right now it's kind of quiet, until camps open up. So
June is always quiet in the NFL.
Yeah, so always quiet. A few more weeks, but just really excited about the Jets this year. Can't wait for the season to start. So you can follow the Talking Rivals show at Talking Rivals. You could follow the Liftoff show at Liftoff Jets. You can follow me at CP7NY.
Excellent.
I want to ask Chris a quick question, because obviously it's the off season. We're not really talking much football, but he spoke to the media the other day. But how concerned are you right now about Mekhi Becton?
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely concerned, and I would think the team is too, because they don't seem that confident in him. Like they're not super excited about him like they are about some of these other players.
Yeah, and clearly the weight's an issue right now.
Oh yeah.
A
little heavy.
You can only go off based on what you think by what you see, but they probably want him around 365, 370, and I heard Boomer Esiason say it. He said, if I had to guess, I'm thinking 395, 400 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and camp is about a month away, so that's not good. That can't be good.
I'm hoping that they sign a backup veteran tackle.
They have to.
Yeah, they have to. I know last year they had Moses, so someone like him that has experience starting, because they might have to start him. I mean, otherwise,
Camp cuts are going to happen, and somebody good's going to be let go. So
absolutely, and think about it. And this is left tackle. This is like the most important position on that offensive line. And absolutely. If they if whatever it is, if Becton turns out okay, or if they sign someone to replace him eventually, this offensive line has a chance to be a top 10, top 5 offensive line.
Even if you sign a right tackle and you put George Fant back over at left,
right? That works too. Absolutely.
They have to have their options, but I had to throw that out there because I just feel very concerned that Mekhi Becton is not in a good spot.
I'm with you too, man. I'm praying that he does work out, and because he's, he came out with his shirt during his press conference. He wants to prove everybody wrong.
Well and good, but you got to do it.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. He can say whatever he wants, and we could be as positive as possible. And a lot of the fans are like, "Oh, don't pick on him." We're not picking on him. We just want him to just prove it to us.
Exactly.
Right. So this is a big year for him. Huge.
Absolutely, 100% huge year.
Yeah.
All important points here, and we'll certainly be talking, I know, a lot of football because it's right around the corner. Listen, camps are going to be starting. It's already June 17th, now June 18th, so that means you're going to be seeing games in another 4 or 5 weeks with the start of the exhibition season, and the NFL season will start. We'll be covering it here, I know, in depth like we always do here on Sportswire Radio, but we didn't save the best for last, as I always say, but we definitely saved the biggest for last. We were talking about the brute force Brad Weiss here, and certainly a lot to look forward to here with some closing thoughts from you. Obviously, we had an impactful start here to the show, obviously speaking about the news about Coach McSorley, but I turn it over to you. I give you the floor, and I can't thank you enough, and you know the drill, and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, Chris, Justin, for another great week of the Sports Report here on Friday Night Live. Certainly a great week, a lot to talk about, so I thank everybody as well who's supporting and watching the show. I thank you all, everybody who's commenting. Even though we're ripping you apart, Carlos, we love you. You do a great job for us. Obviously, John Gonzalez, amongst everybody else. So thank you all for listening and supporting our show. Of course, you can follow us, follow myself on Instagram at bweiss20, searching on Twitter at bradweiss20, and searching on Facebook, searching Bradley Weiss. So a few things I wanted to touch upon. First of all, I have to do this because I'll get ripped apart if I don't. Okay. Uh-oh. So I went to the game on Tuesday night, to the Mets game, and they all begged for a shout out. So I have to give every one of the guys who I went to the Mets game on Tuesday a shout out. That includes James DeSimone, Jason Getz, James Cronin, and of course Joe Sarney. They all.
Oh, guys, we all know here very well, especially Jason Getz and James DeSimone.
Yeah.
Guys we've heard on here. Where the hell have they been?
Well, a couple of them are just getting high school finished with, as James
Fair
and
enough.
Jason.
That time of year, yeah.
James Cronin's been running around the basketball facility up the street he works at, and Joe's the same. So a bunch of them also want to get on the Sports Report. I told them soon. We'll make it work. So they definitely are itching to get on. In fact, they even mentioned this, and I'm like, guys, I don't know about this, but we had a beef on the train ride going to the Mets game and got a little debate. Like, guys, why don't we start a podcast with us? I'm like, I don't know about that. That's talking big. But we'll see. Maybe,
you know what? Listen, I mean, somebody's got to start somewhere. I mean, listen, if it makes him feel any better, when I started out 3.5 years ago, it was me and the guy that was behind the Sports Report with me those years ago, Rob Hines, and we had no experience. We were just like two guys that we spoke sports all throughout the streets of Staten Island for years and years and years, and we just did it. It's a different world now. Everybody has Zoom and Anchor, but we did it in those days. We had to set it up in such a different way. So I'm not going to discount.
Hey, listen, we'll see. Trust me, I am not. This does not mean I ain't missing the Sports Report. I'll be here every week.
We'll bring them on if they want to come on Fridays 9:30.
We'll see if anything happens in the future. But a few more comments quickly. I'll just since you guys brought up the Jets, I'm just going to do this for fun. I want to give a shout out to the Jets quarterback Zach Wilson, who was at the Yankee game a few days ago and refused to participate in the wave. All right. I'm going to give him a shout out for not doing it, even though his girlfriend was trying to make him do it. He didn't do it. All right. And I'm happy because I was at the game the other day, and these people are doing the wave, and I'm trying to watch the game. All right. And I'm missing pitches because they're waving in front of me. All right. And people say, oh, well, you just saying it because Noah Syndergaard used to be on the team and didn't like it. No, it doesn't have nothing to do with Syndergaard. I don't like the wave in general. So, I'm giving credit to Zach Wilson. That was a good decision. And I think, the wave is overrated, in my opinion. So,
but we've talked about the wave. Don't even get me started.
It had to be said.
It should be illegal.
It had to be said.
Stupidest thing I've
seen.
But
especially as a real baseball fan that wants to watch the game. Other people are there for other reasons, but I'm there to watch the baseball games. So
yeah, I'm gonna lose it tomorrow if they start doing the wave.
I used to get annoyed at Islander games. They would do the wave. I used to get
Oh.
I
so
don't get
annoyed.
it. I don't get it.
Got
either.
it. Never
But
got it.
shout out to Zach Wilson. Hopefully, that's like the first of many great decisions he makes this season. So, we're hoping for that. The last comment I'll obviously make will be one more shout out to Coach Mike McSloy. I want to once again congratulate him on his job at Drew University in New Jersey. Obviously, a great program he's going into, but the program also got an amazing coach that should be proud because he ultimately has taken the road to prosperity. He started as an assistant. He continued to work his way up. He got to St. Joseph's. He did an amazing job. Once again, like I said, he's going to be the guy remembered as getting St. Joe's back on the right track. And now he's going to go to Drew, and he's going to be a great coach. And personally, Tom Bryce, I don't think the train is going to stop at Drew. I think he's going to continue to make leaps. And he's going to be one of those coaches that one day we're going to see on a big stage. I got a great feeling because he has that potential. And I'm just really proud to have learned from him because a lot of what I learned from him is now what I apply as a coach. So I want to thank Coach McSloy for that. All the alumni that I know want to thank Coach McSloy for bringing St. Joe's back to where we can be excited to see this program. And I will be excited to see who the next hire is. I'm aware of a few that are interested in the job. So I will be very into seeing who this guy ultimately is that will lead our program going forward. So I can't thank you guys enough once again. I can't thank St. Joe's as well for supporting me. But ultimately, we'll see what the next steps come to when it comes to our St. Joseph's Golden Eagles. So thank you guys. Can't wait for another great week. And Justin, enjoy the game. Hopefully they get another win.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. All great stuff there. And again, congratulations to Coach McSloy on a tremendous job at St. Joe's. And certainly, like I said before, spoke to him the first time, the Brute Force, right before the holiday break of 2019. And I speak to this guy on the phone, and he took a chance on me coming on the Sports Report at the time. And
yeah, and hey, I should have said it before. He's the reason why I'm here. So
yeah, I tell you what, we spoke about it. I would speak with Coach. Like I said, I would speak with Coach all the time, and I had said to Coach, "What would you like me to speak with on the team?" Because we did a lot of work with John Jay College at the time, and he suggested you were the guy, really. I mean, Doug Niblock came up, but I knew his brother Chris, and then obviously Frank Basile and different guys. Other names were brought up. Certainly, Matt's name comes up always, but I have a feeling we're going to get Matt a lot sooner than later. But that's here nor there. But you were definitely the guy, and definitely very grateful to Coach McSloy for all the support he has given us for the brand, and always listen to us here. He's always checking us out on Instagram, on our stories, and everything else like that. So I do, on a personal level, want to thank Mike McSloy. I always said he was one of the up-and-coming coaches, and what a job here. Best season the team had in just about a decade, best winning streak in just about a decade, best season we've had in a long time here, win against Yeshiva, nationally ranked win, and what a second half. Certainly a storybook season. It's going to definitely continue here. We got Coach Gordieso on the staff, and a lot of guys are going to come back, so I'm definitely happy about all of that. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, give us a like on Facebook anytime at Sportswire Radio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to great shows like The Talking Rivals, like The Liftoff Jets, like The Baseball Banter, like The Pinstripe Chronicles 200th show here on sportnarium.com/player. We'll also have our live DJ Thomas Clark back 8 to 10 p.m. British Standard Time tomorrow night. We'll also have more great shows on the way as well from the Rewind Wrestling Podcast. I also want to thank everybody that's come on this week. We also have more great content coming here Sunday afternoon. I'll be on with the CCW guys with Prince Dagan. We'll also have Wildfire Nate Reese and the Acid Stephen Cross. Monday, we're going to have on the team of Colin McGregor and Damian Stone. Are going to be on the call for CCW's next show on June the 25th. Also, more college basketball talk, 5 p.m. live, the Brute Force Eastern Time with the Finlandia University trio of Jacob Davatashvili, Danny Zuchak, and Trace Jones. The following week, we'll have Coach Alan DeHorty from the men's basketball team. So a lot of great content. And also, we're going to have world champion boxer June the 30th live, 9 p.m. British Standard Time, Paul Pierce. So I spoke with Paul, and he heard my introduction of him. He heard the clip, and he's like, wow, you really went out of your way for me. But I'm like, you're the world champion. You're fighting on pay-per-view. So I'm really grateful for that. I want to thank, obviously, the man that I succeeded at Sportswire Radio, Trevor Lakey, for that hookup and that opportunity. But in the meantime, if you are on sportnarium.com/player, in about 5 minutes, you will get a sit-down Mark show. If you are also on all of our other platforms, we'll be back here tomorrow with Thomas Clark. It is Father's Day weekend, and I want to wish all the great fathers a very happy Father's Day. Justin Gianelli's father, obviously. Chris, he himself is a father. Brute Force can never forget about your father. And since it is Father's Day weekend, I'm going to rain check one more week because Coach Gordieso had said to me he will be around next weekend. So I'm going to take his word at it for the All-American Burger because I want to make sure I can get Coach Gordieso there. So he told me he's away. And also, I got to wish his beautiful fiance happy birthday. So I promised I would give a happy birthday wish to his very beautiful fiance. I won't say how old she is because he told me how old she is, but I'm never going to tell a woman what their age is. So all I'll say is happy birthday. I hope you enjoy it where you guys are in South Beach. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you come back with the tan. Hope you come back ready to relax. I hope to meet you, Coach Gordieso, finally next weekend at the Old American Burger because you promised me you're going to be there. So now I'm going to wait because you told me you're going to be there. So I don't want to go there. And also, Justin's going to be at the Met game tomorrow. So I'm going to hold you to it, Coach Gordieso. So looking forward to that. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I want to finally get this over with, get it off my back and try it. But in the meantime, thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. I want to thank, again, CCW. I want to thank the Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis. I also want to thank, obviously, Nonstop Action Wrestling, actor, wrestler, champion, disciple, everybody that's come on here. So thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Enjoy your weekend. I also want to thank Linda McGrath and Mac McGrath at the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. I also want to thank Desmond Johnson at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. They will be playing us tomorrow. So tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. You can check us out there. It'll be around, I think, 2:30 tomorrow. So while you're listening to music in the background, you can catch us there on their radio station. They'll also be on North Carolina AM while we're on their website. So all great stuff there to plug. So thank you, everybody. We'll be back here this weekend. I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Enjoy your weekend. It's going to be beautiful. So get out there, enjoy it. Let's go Yankees. Let's go Mets. We'll be back next week. Thank you and enjoy. Until then, be safe, be well, and you are on the number one global sports radio station, Sportswire Radio. Thank you, everyone.